at the end of time.
O'clock.
Okay. Now, please tell me what the microphone sounds like, if it sounds different, or
if you can't hear us at all,
or if you can't hear at all, or something like that, because
we put it on a different setting to pick up all around.
And I'm too blind to see which setting is which.
Yeah. People have been complaining that they can't hear me enough when I'm back here.
Which is crazy because you have a very loud voice.
Yeah, but
everybody
I don't know
says
what volume they're listening to.
Sounds perfect. Sounds good to me. Okay.
All right.
So yeah, we changed it to, because this microphone has a
bunch of settings.
Has a bunch of settings where it can record all around, or it can just record on one side. And I think we just had it recording on one side, so it's just recording me loud and not him. So
yeah, if I sound like I'm mumbling, tell me. I'll just move closer to this thing or whatever. I'll speak up more.
Project.
I'll just project.
Although then I'll go deaf, you'll be yelling right in my ear.
I'll just sound off like I got a pair.
Like you got a pair?
I got a pair.
I know you do.
Yeah.
You got a pair.
Yeah.
A matching set.
Yeah, that's fucking
as
funny.
It were.
Yeah. So this is going to be a good show tonight. Old Rhoades, truck driver.
This was actually Tom's idea. I don't even remember how we got on this topic, but I think because weren't you thinking about that photo? Because there's a very famous photo of one of the victims that's associated with this case.
Yeah. We were watching Unsolved Mysteries, and somebody mentioned something about victims' photos and shit, I think. And then it reminded me of that picture of that little 14-year-old girl in that fucking black dress looking like something off a Ladytron.
Yeah.
Fucking looking scared with her hands up like that. So I went digging for that photo again. I forgot what her name was now.
Regina Walters.
Yeah, Regina, yeah. And there's a lot more photos of her.
There are, yeah. He took a bunch.
Yeah. One of her from the back. A couple back shots of her back of her head in that barn. One where he's got her nude chained up on a log outside a little pond. They don't know where it was taken, but she's pixelated, so you can't really see her. I don't know what. Can't really. He wasn't a very good photographer. She was kind of far off too. She would have been she looked like a little tiny detail in the picture. And then there's probably other ones, because they mentioned that there are other ones, but they're not out there.
I've seen most of the ones of her that he took in the barn, which is sadly where he killed her. That's where they found her body later.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this last night because I watched a fuck ton of documentaries about this, and read the GQ article about the girl that had escaped him, and all these other articles about it. And then we watched FBI files and one other one about him last night. And we were talking about when they, we'll get into all this in more depth later on, but when they searched his apartment and they found all these photographs of all these women, and Tom's like, well, why don't they release them or something like that? When I was reading an article, they said why they didn't. Is because a lot of the times the photographs, if they can't tell if the photograph if it was consensual or not,
right,
then they're not really allowed to release the photo to the public. If they know that it's a murder victim or someone that's a missing person, then they can. But if they don't know that, if they haven't been reported as a missing person or anything like that, then they're not really allowed, because it's a violation of their privacy. So they can't release all of the ones unless they know what the status of the person is.
At least they could just release the faces.
No, they're not. No, you can't do that.
Man,
you can't do that.
But what are the photos? Are the
I don't
photos
know.
explicit, I guess?
Well, some of them are, for sure. But I don't actually know. Here's the thing. This motherfucker, and so people are commenting on the picture, the very famous picture that I used for the thumbnail, because I was like, well, I gotta use that picture, because that's an iconic
Popeye shit.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's making that face on purpose or if he had a stroke or something. It looks like he had a stroke at some point.
I've seen two pictures of him.
Because he didn't look like that.
And one eye is bigger than the other.
Yeah.
One eye squints. So I think he might have eye damage or something.
Yeah, and because he didn't look like that when he was younger. So that must be a new development.
Something happened to him in prison, maybe.
Or something, gee, boo-hoo.
But,
what a shame. But yeah, so he's actually only been convicted of 4 murders, 2 couples actually, but they suspect that he might have killed 50 women. Now this estimate just comes from which, like I said, I'll get into more depth later. But they did a computer analysis of like all of his truck logs, like where he traveled, like from because he was a truck driver for a long time, from 1975 to 1990, which is when he got caught, and there were a lot of missing persons and unsolved murders in the areas where he was at the time that he was there that fit his MO. So they don't know for sure that he did them, but it's a possibility. So that's where they're getting that 50
now the other pictures,
estimate from.
There's other pictures of Regina. You're talking about. There's the famous one where she's got her hand up.
Yeah.
And then I saw 2 of them where it looks like she was turning away. The back. Is that the ones you saw too?
Yeah.
The backs and side of her head.
They were in the barn though.
Yeah.
Like there was a bunch of her in that barn.
Yeah, in a barn.
That was, like I said.
That's where he killed her. But what's funny is that they said that she looked terrified. To me, I always thought that the photo looked very staged. I don't think she knew what was going to happen. I think, you know, and she had been with him for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing.
Yeah, and she probably saw him kill her boyfriend. So I think she was pretty fucking numb. Probably sick of that shit. She's only 14, but she's probably fucking like, yeah, let's end this shit.
I mean.
Yeah. And what was funny is that, and we'll get into it in a minute, some of these victims kind of followed him around. Like he'd take him out of the truck and he took him to his apartment, chained him up in there. But it's funny how he can move him around basically in public. And some of my research said that other truck drivers saw him and Regina together at the truck stops during that time. So he was walking around with her. Now, he must have had her fucking scared shitless because other women were afraid to tell on him.
Yeah, which is another thing we'll get into. So he must have done some horrific shit.
Yeah.
I mean, just like from vague descriptions, it sounds horrible.
He just scared them into fucking compliance. And, you know, guess they thought that he would kill them in public if he had to. Which, that's some mind control there.
He also always struck me as very arrogant.
Yeah.
I don't think he thought he was going to get caught. And honestly, this is one of those cases. I'm not saying he wouldn't have eventually got caught, because I'm sure he probably would have. But this is one of those cases where he only kind of got caught kind of coincidentally, like by accident. You know what I mean? Like just kind of a routine traffic stop kind of thing. And it's like, oh, look who we caught. You know what I mean? But they didn't know anything about him when they caught him. Yeah. It was only afterwards that they uncovered all the shit that he'd been up to. You know? Yeah. So that's why this was... Because I went back and forth about how to like tell this story, like whether like chronologically or whatever. And because I watched different documentaries and everybody kind of had a different take on it. And I was just kind of like, well, I guess what I'll do is I'll just kind of give a background on him, and then I'll say how he got caught, and then how they found out about all the other shit that he did. Because that's kind of chronological, like how it happened. Because like I said, when he got caught
first, he gets caught first.
Yeah, like they didn't. I mean, obviously he murdered all the people first, but they didn't know anything about him until
he gets caught first, and then once they figure out who he is, it takes some time to put together all these other cases, you know, of people that he killed, and then a bunch of suspected cases.
Yeah. Xanada said, I wasn't aware someone escaped this guy. Hadn't looked into all the details. Jenny did a deep dive. Yeah, a couple women did. A couple women did.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into. And actually, I wanted to kind of cover one girl too who met him like early on, like hitchhiking, but they thought she was one of the ones whose photo they did release because they thought she was a missing person. But she saw the photo on Facebook. She's like, hey, that's me. I'm not dead.
Right.
And she had to call the police and said, no, I'm still alive. And
he knew her.
Yeah, well, it was on the photo was on the same roll as the Regina Walters photos, so they naturally assumed. No, the photo of her was actually from 1985.
So he had that roll of film for that long.
I guess so, which is weird. I don't know, but I don't know if he took Polaroids or if I don't know, because he had they said he had a whole bunch of photos, like when they raided his apartment.
Must have been a lot of them Polaroids they're not showing us.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, CB said I first saw this on the FBI files. Yeah, I watched the FBI files about this. That was a good show because that kind of went deep into the investigation and talked to all the the dude that caught him and everything.
I remember this case vaguely from back in the 80s, late 80s, when the news was saying, yeah, they found a truck driver who evidently had tortured some chick. And, he didn't kill her. And that's how this fucking case actually kind of starts. One got away from him and she didn't press charges on him. I remember that.
Yeah.
They were talking about that. And then it was just forgotten.
Yeah, for a while. That. Like I said, until...
Yeah, and it became kind of like a rumor, I remember, in the late 80s, in the 90s, that truck drivers could just pick you up and torture you. It became kind of like a thing.
I was watching a documentary about this last night, and I'm pretty sure that it said, and I don't know what year this was from, because this was probably the documentary from a couple years back, but it said that the FBI estimates that there are 850 murders, that there are 850 unsolved murders that were likely committed by truck drivers.
Yeah, killing lot lizards.
Yeah, so, and there's other that's the thing. If you search truck stop killer, Ben Rhoades is the most famous one, but there are a couple ones that are called that too.
Yeah, it only take a couple of them to do that amount of damage.
And I think we talked about this some when we talked about a long time ago when we did the case about the Texas killing fields. Yeah, where they suspect that, obviously that's more than one serial killer because that's a lot of bodies, in that one area. And, it's a pretty big area. But they suspect that a lot of them are probably truck drivers, which, like I said, that doesn't mean that all truck drivers are serial killers. It's just that people with that proclivity tend to gravitate to that profession because it makes it easier to be a serial killer.
And they have access to lot lizards.
Right, exactly. And they're not supervised, and they're on their own a lot, and they're going around the country so they can pick somebody up. Yeah. They pick up people at, prostitutes and things like that.
Hitchhikers.
Drug addicts, hitchhikers that no one's going to miss necessarily. Yeah. And then they just go to a couple states over and kill them and dump them and, nobody associates.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like now, but this generation, the boomer generation of truckers, they really looked down on lot lizards and hitchhikers. To them, that automatically just meant you were a prostitute. You were just going to trade a ride for sex type of deal.
Yeah.
And money for sex. So, they had CB handles for them. They call it all beavers. Any woman they just call it a beaver.
That's nice.
Yeah. Fucking lot lizards and shit. But kind of male-dominated fucking scene, and at least in the boomer generation, I'd probably fucking call them kind of like there's a lot of misogyny, looking down on women.
Big time.
Big
time.
Yeah.
And it's so casual too.
Yeah, just real chauvinist.
Yeah, they didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I had a friend that ended up being a long haul truck driver from high school. Fucking Grandpa's in here. He wouldn't know who he was because he was from Southgate, and he was kind of he was a funny guy. He was all right, but he was kind of like an incel. He was a guy, he couldn't get girlfriends. He wanted to be a trucker. He became a trucker eventually, but he had no way with women. So I imagine his first experiences were with lot lizards. So that might fucking distort your view of women.
Well, yeah.
And you're alone for a long time in that truck, in that cab.
You can sit there and ruminate.
Yeah, driving, living mentally, which I can understand. It's kind of like being in the Army. I was in the Army, but it's different. I think in the Army you're probably, out more. And
and you're around other people.
You're around, you're around you get out, you get away from, and you're young, so it's not quite the same. But similar to fucking working on oil rigs, probably.
Yeah.
Being a truck driver, which somebody's got to do it. But there's such thing as doing that too much. It might affect your fucking thinking.
Yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily think that being a truck driver makes you a serial killer.
No, I'm sure a lot of them are good guys.
Yeah, I think most of them are. Obviously 99% of them are good guys, and that's how we get all our shit around the country. So
Yeah, you can't function without them.
Right, but I'm just saying that people that have that proclivity toward being a serial killer, that's a very attractive. Just like being a cop is.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of them are kind of cop groupies, or they want to be in authority, they want to have power over other people and shit like that.
Yeah.
Or that's like a different type of serial killer.
Yeah.
But serial killers for real that just want to kill sex workers and just kill lots of women, they tend to gravitate toward jobs like that, where they're just on their own a lot of the time.
Mobile, moving around.
Are mobile, yeah.
Yeah, nobody's watching them, no supervision. They have access to low-end fucking prostitutes. They'll get right in the truck with them. And fucking runaways and shit. That's a fucking recipe for disaster. Yeah, so that's what this story is about. Okay.
MySlace says, what sort of pay scale would a trucker be on? I mean,
they make good money.
They do make decent money,
yeah.
at least in this country. I mean, it's a specific lifestyle, so I take it pays well. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what company you're working for, and like, because some of them are on the road, you know, a lot, like for weeks at a time.
Yeah, they're working for a certain company.
And then come back home. And some of them are just kind of like short haul.
Yeah, and then some of them are independent.
Yeah.
Where they own their own rig.
But I've heard they make
trailers.
like pretty decent money.
Yeah. It's my understanding that if you own your own rig and you got your own contracts, you make a fucking shit ton.
Yeah.
But you got to have the connections. But I guess the guys that do that have the connections. That's why they buy those rigs.
I mean, honestly, if I didn't hate driving, I would probably like that job.
Well, some of those independent guys, there was independent guys, this goes way back, they had a nice sleeper cab, it was big, and they had the wife with them.
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't be, like, alone all the time.
No, they're acting as a team.
And I'm sure it's probably better now than it's... I mean, back in the fucking 70s and 80s and stuff like that, it was very, very male-dominated, and so, like, you'd go... Like, the truck stops, like, had, like, for real, like, porn on the walls and fucking...
Yeah, they were crappy.
And they were really gross.
Yeah,
and, like,
they were crap. Coming back from Mississippi, I'd fucking would pass them and shit in certain areas where I was doing exchanges and stops. And no, it's fucking, compared to the way it was in the 70s and 80s when I was a kid, remember it? No, man, it's nice now. Everything's well lit. Modern. Yeah. There's modern fucking amenities
everything's
everywhere.
Like much more.
Yeah.
It's better.
Those guys can get fucking finest food right there.
Yeah, there's food and showers and clean bathrooms. And, I mean, I guess it would depend on the state or how much money they're putting into it.
It's real nice.
Tesla one is asking, can a truck driver legally be armed in America? Are they allowed to have firearms on the job? Is it state law specific?
Fucking right.
I mean, it might be state law specific, but I think in general, yes. If they have a permit, then I don't see any reason.
No, they're armed.
Yeah,
I think almost all of them are.
I mean, if I was a truck driver, I would for sure.
Yeah.
Because of guys like this.
Right. There was a time when I was in Fort Campbell and I was on during White Cycle, they're pimping you out to all these different tasks around the entire fort. And for a week I had to guard this one place where it was a truck stop inside Fort Campbell, outside the Connexes. And I had to guard that there because trucks would pile up there when people weren't on duty and somebody had to kind of watch them. It was just, there had to be a presence there. We didn't really do anything. And then later on, fucking Army guys would show up and tell them where to drop the supplies that they had. Well, that shit that they were carried in was Hellfire missiles for the choppers that we had. Hellfire missiles, ammunition, and all kinds of shit. And those truck drivers were... The one truck driver that I talked to, he was in there with his wife. They were a married team. And they had fucking M16s. Full auto M16s. Because their truck was fucking filled with Hellfire missiles.
Well,
you think they let you go across fucking... They were government contractors, though. Government independent contractors. And they had M16s. In the cabs.
Mrs. Evans' Artie Party said, my father and mother-in-law team drove for a long time.
Yeah.
You make really good money truck driving.
Yeah.
And also, she recommended the Aussie movie Road Games with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis. We didn't review that? I could have sworn we reviewed Road Games, that Australian movie. Shit, maybe we didn't. I've been wanting to do it, but I thought we'd already done it. Maybe I was thinking of another movie. We'll get around to it one of these days, I promise. Because I have been wanting to do that, actually. CB said the BBC Top Gear presenter got suspended for making a joke about killing a prostitute while driving a lorry. Yeah, I mean... that's kind of not cool. Because
Well,
it
see,
really does happen, you know what I mean?
If they suspect there's 800 of them have been accrued over the years.
Yeah, 850. At least. Those are just like...
that's a lot of women, but there's a shit ton of truck drivers.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you a lot, many of those fucking dead ones probably weren't serial killers as one-time things. Maybe some chick overdosed in a dude's fucking cab.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily
and
mean
he's
that
like,
every single
fuck.
one of them is a serial killer.
Yeah, I don't want
or
to
the
get in
victim of a
trouble, so he
serial
just
killer.
dumps her.
Right.
Because
Yeah, I mean, I could
They
see
don't have
that.
any next of kin a lot of
I could
times.
see that
There's shit like that could happen.
Although,
So.
like I said, it's kind of sad that, I mean, the country is so vast and there's still wide swaths of it that's just highway and there's like really nothing else around. So it's really easy for these kind of guys to like operate.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people for them to prey on too. Still, not as many as back in the 70s and 80s probably when everyone was hitchhiking. But don't hitchhike, kids.
No, the hitchhiking
It
thing.
ends badly.
Yeah, and for some reason people think that you can hitchhike using those truckers. You can. People have done it, but they want something in exchange usually. You catch my drift.
Well, I think most of them, and they used to sell those signs in the truck stops.
Yeah.
Ass, gas, or grass.
Yep.
No one rides for free.
No one rides for free.
And in matter of fact, this dude had one of those very signs in his truck because of course he did.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that was a very common thing for truckers to have. They would give you a ride, but you had to give something up.
Yeah, head.
Or money, or pot.
money.
Or pot.
Yeah.
One of those three things. It had to be one of those three things. So yeah. So, okay. There was one more thing that... Oh, Xanada said, my dad's a truck driver, but he hauls rock, not cross country. He comes home every night. Yeah, because I think there's some... Yeah, there's like short haul. Like, yeah, these are like long haul. They're on... Like, they're out for like weeks at a time.
Weeks, yeah.
And then, so they're like out on the road. They usually sleep in their truck. They have sleeper cabs.
Yeah.
Like this motherfucker did. Well, his sleeper cab, he actually turned it into a torture chamber. So that's nice. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this dude's upbringing before we get into like how he got caught and then like how they figured out all of the crimes that he did and shit. So this fuckhead was originally from Council Bluffs, Iowa. Now he's born in 1945. His dad was in the army and was stationed in West Germany, so he was gone all the time, pretty much. And so he was mostly raised by his mom. Now, when he was in elementary school, his dad came back from overseas and started to work as a firefighter. Now, his dad was like a pretty well-respected member of the community, I guess. Army veteran, firefighter, However... Some accounts have claimed that his father was abusive, perhaps toward the wife, perhaps also toward the son. I'm not sure. I mean, that may or may not be true, but I will say that some shit that happened a little bit later on makes it kind of more likely to me. That's what I'm going to say. Now, interestingly, as far as anybody knows, Rhoades didn't really exhibit any of your classic serial killer symptoms, really. He seemed pretty normal. He was actually like pretty, I don't know if I'd call him popular in school, but he was very active. Like he was into sports and he was in the French club and the choir and like all different. So he had like a bunch of extracurricular activities and shit like that. He was on the wrestling team. He was on the football team, shit like that. So he seemed like pretty normal. Now, he did get in trouble with the law a couple of times when he was a teenager, but it was minor shit. Like, he got arrested in 1961, that's when he was 16 years old, for quote-unquote tampering with a vehicle. I don't know what that means. Sticking a banana in the tailpipe? I don't know what that means. But that's...
Trying to sabotage somebody's vehicle.
Maybe. Or it could be cutting the brake lines. It could be a lot of things. I'm not really sure what that means. And he was also arrested in 1962, when he was 17, for public fighting. So, like I said, not great, but just... minor shit, teenager shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not...
Desolate one's in there. He said he's amazed at that law that truck drivers could have guns. He says, I guess they're carrying all that expensive stuff. Well, let me really blow your mind. Most of the states here in the South have what's called constitutional carry. I can carry a gun anywhere I want to as long as they're not serving alcohol there. And I don't have any kind of special license. If you can legally purchase a gun in this state, you can legally carry it. But in this state, it has to be concealed. We don't have what's called open carry, which means you can't carry a weapon on the outside of your hip, or you can't walk around with a rifle. Other states have that, where you have open carry, but not concealed carry. You need a license for concealment. Florida says no. If you can legally own a gun, you can conceal it and carry it. So it's the same thing. No license.
Santa said, "Let me tell you something about Iowa. Everything revolves around corn there." That's what I've heard. I've actually never been to Iowa, but every person that I've ever heard say something about Iowa says that exact thing. So I guess it must be true. Well, Hello There said, "You're not a real trucker if you don't have Yosemite Sam mud flaps."
Yeah.
I think
or those
you need the naked girl mud
the naked
flaps,
girls,
I feel.
yeah.
Although the Yosemite Sam ones are good too.
Yeah.
What do those say on them?
Back off.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got the two guns. He
That's
fucking
yeah.
back off.
He's like
If
that.
you can read it, you're too close.
Yeah.
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 I remember those. I used to see those all the time.
But yeah,
Not as much as the Naked Babe ones, but yeah, that was like the second most popular.
Desolate one. I got all kinds of guns and all kinds of pistols. I got Walters. I got fucking Rugers. Fucking Smith and Wesson's automatics, 9mm, 40s, 380s. I got assault rifles, AKs, AR-15s, bunch of AR-15s, and I don't ever carry them because when I leave, usually we're going to the club, and it's against the law to carry a firearm in a place that serves alcohol.
In the places where we're going, you don't really need them.
Yeah, you don't really need them.
You know, I never
Right.
felt like I needed one.
No. It's just, it's funny, man. Everybody here is armed, but there's no, you never see them, and it doesn't feel dangerous here. But actually, it's more violent than the Old West in terms of crime and shooting. But it's concentrated in certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, I never usually, and honestly, I used to go to downtown Orlando by myself a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would feel kind of sketchy, but I never like feared for my life or anything like
You
that.
never have it's not like, and there were shootings around the area where we're talking about, but we just kind of
were.
laughed them off.
I mean, I didn't laugh at
They didn't involve us.
but I was like, well, glad that I wasn't there.
Our bouncer friend bounced a dude out of the fucking club, and that dude got pissed. He was drunk as shit. Fucking took a .22 out of his fucking trunk, and this is before they had open carry, or before they had constitutional carry. Went back to the fucking bar and shot at the back door, and he was holding the door shut. The guy was trying to kick his way in. The police station was right next to the place. The cops guy.
Yeah.
Police station was right there, next to the fucking bar.
Yeah,
That's how stupid
it's
he
literally club, parking lot entrance.
Yeah.
Oh no, pizza place, parking lot entrance, police station.
Another one that happened. We weren't there that night, but a couple bars up, they closed the bar down, and there was a dude who was drunk off his ass, leaning up against the bar, and pulled a pistol out of his waistband and put it on the bar, and they freaked out. The cops came, and the cops shot at him, missed, and killed the fucking waitress. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then that guy turned around, and then they mowed him down. He didn't threaten anybody. He just had a gun on him and was so fucking drunk he could barely walk. So the cops we got good cops, but that's not the end all to be all. And when you're in trouble, you really gonna have to take care of yourself here.
Well, we were downtown when the Pulse shooting happened.
Yeah.
We were literally 2 blocks away.
Yeah, and I had a bad feeling something was gonna happen. Remember that?
We did, yeah.
I says, we're getting out of here.
We had been somewhere that day, like to a theme park or something like that, and then we decided we were kind of like, should we go to iBar tonight? Maybe, I don't know. It's like or whatever. And then we just like at the last minute we kind of decided to, and we were walking to iBar, which was downtown then. It's not anymore.
Yeah.
And they moved it, but Tom's like, I have a bad feeling, you know.
I feel it's hospital. Yeah,
nah, it'll be all right and stuff like that. But then later on, that was the night of the Pulse shooting. And Pulse is I think it's only 2 blocks from there.
Yeah, some Middle Eastern guy shot up the gay club. And then he got killed. Cops killed him.
Yeah, so we were downtown when that happened. Yeah. But we didn't really know what was going on. Like, we were out on the patio, and some people were like, what the fuck? It's like, something's going on down there, like, because there was cop cars and stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't really find out until the next day.
But it's just not... And most of the U.S. is very rural. If you look at England looks the only place like that would be the New England states. And the New England states are pretty tough on guns because there's no open space there. There's just no room for anybody. Everybody's just packed in there. Very high population density. So I can kind of understand it there. But here it's just mostly fucking empty. And, even downtown is not crowded. It's not like New York or Tokyo or where everything is just on top of one another. Americans have pretty big space bubbles. They don't like to be real close to other people. They don't stand real close to other people. We're used to everything being spread out.
Yeah, if somebody gets too close, you're just like...
Right. And as soon as you're outside the city areas, you effectively have no police protection. You're on your own. There's just not enough cops to watch you. You call the cops, okay, we'll be there in about 45 minutes. Where her mom lives, man, police response time would probably be 45 minutes.
Which, like I said, that's kind of why I worry about her out there.
Yeah. So it's a frontier, basically. You gotta fucking take care of your own business.
That are right there.
Yeah.
So it's not really that big a deal, but still.
So you gotta watch your own back. But like I said, it's not that violent.
Did I tell you she texted all of us, me and my siblings, the other day? She wanted one of us. Usually my brother Eric does this because he lives pretty close to her. Because, we live an hour away. But she wanted somebody to come to the house because the guy was coming to deliver her new fridge. And she didn't want to be in the house by herself with a delivery guy.
Did somebody...
My brother was going to go out there. Mm-hmm. He had just been to the dentist.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll come over after the dentist. Yeah. But then it turned out that the fridge guy didn't even come there anyway. Like, his truck broke down or some shit. So it was just kind of like... I don't blame her, though, because she does kind of live out there by herself. And it is kind of scary, like...
Yeah. That's the one says
living by yourself.
It's dangerous in London with all these knives. I've seen videos of those dudes. You just get big. Go in there, fucking work out, take steroids... Those knives don't mean anything. You got to get really stabbed up to be killed. It takes 15, 16 hits. Unless he gets you in the jugular vein. Dude pulls a knife on you, you fucking jump on him and fucking beat his ass. Take that knife and stick it right up his butt. Pow, 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 pow. It's called keistering. Just keister that motherfucker.
They're probably in his throat.
And you tell him, you never pull a knife on me again. You walk away fucking... A knife would do nothing in the United States. People pull guns on one another. They go ahead, shoot me, motherfucker. Go ahead, shoot me. And the dude does shoot him. But, Americans are a lot meaner than Europeans.
I don't know if that's the case.
I think it is.
I was in the UK for a while. They're pretty fucking mean, too.
Well, why would you be afraid of somebody with a knife?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think they're afraid of anybody. They're just right. And honestly, they have guns over there, too.
Yeah. I would.
They're shooting people all the time.
I wouldn't.
I've written about a lot of crimes where people just came up and just randomly, or just broke into some old lady's place and just like fucking shot her in the face.
I couldn't live in Europe. I'd be a criminal there. Because I would do just what I do
here. That's
here.
nothing to be proud of.
Yeah, because I'm going to do just what I do here. I'm going to do it over there. I ain't going to change over it. I wouldn't trust them to defend me. I'd have a gun. Yeah. Fuck them. It's not my country. It's my ass, though. I'm going to take care of myself. Here, let me get that for you.
All right, now let's finally get back to the topic.
Okay.
Now that we've gone way the fuck off track. All right, CB said, this guy is the reason I don't let people tie me up or handcuff my hands behind my back. Yeah, I mean, there's very few people I would trust to do that. Actually, I don't know if there's anybody. I guess I would trust Tom to do it, but other than that, no. No way. So, where was I? Okay. So, like I said, when he was growing up, he didn't really seem to exhibit any of your standard serial killer tropes. He wasn't an arsonist. He didn't kill animals, or not that anyone knows of anyway, not that anything I've ever seen. So he got arrested a couple times, but it was relatively minor shit, and nothing violent really. It seemed like, other than getting in a fight with another kid, which, like I said, a lot of teenagers do that, so it's not really that big a deal. So he graduates from high school in 1964. And then he joined the Marines. Now, the same year that he joined the Marines, his dad, remember, the Army veteran, the firefighter, the respected member of the community, his dad got arrested for molesting a 12-year-old girl.
There you go.
Some sources I saw say that the 12-year-old girl was either a relative or a family friend, or I don't know if it was just a random girl. I'm not really sure. But the dad got arrested for it, and while he was awaiting trial, he killed himself. I believe he shot himself in the head. Now, whether or not, because I know that some documentaries I saw kind of speculated that maybe this was a thing that like pushed Rhoades over the edge, or maybe this was like a formative event, which it very well may have been. But I don't know, man. The fact that his dad... Here's the thing. That he got caught for molesting a 12-year-old girl, I can pretty much guarantee that's probably not the first time he did that. The fact that he just got caught that time. And so I'm kind of thinking maybe Rhoades is like learning some shit from his dad. You know, maybe his dad's kind of rubbing off on him. He's kind of like a chip off the old block. You know what I'm saying?
It might just be the shame.
Could be that too.
He's embarrassed and he goes, well, Dad may have been onto something. I don't know.
That's like, Jesus Christ. So
maybe it soiled him. So all of a sudden,
and I'm not really sure. And that's another thing too, because there's not like a huge amount of information about Rhoades like when he was a kid. So I don't know like how much the family knew that the dad was doing this kind of shit, or I don't know. I mean, this was the 60s, so yeah, it was just kind of like, in some ways, I'm kind of like, yeah, that would have been. In some ways, though, I kind of feel like, this is going to sound horrible, but it's like, it almost seems like in the 60s, people would be like, it's not that big a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm actually kind of glad they took it seriously back then, but I don't know.
So you talking about the underage sex thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't a big
Well,
deal.
it wasn't underage sex. He actually molested
her.
It was, yeah, it wasn't like she was Lolita or some shit like that.
Okay, so it wasn't a consensual fucking thing. It was, he
No.
basically raped her is what you're saying.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and like I said, I don't know if it was a family friend or a relative or just a stranger or a random person. Because they're, like I said, there's not a huge amount of
They
information.
had a fucking different fucking way of looking at things back then. I can kind of remember from the 70s and the 80s. They didn't really care too much about that. People didn't care about a fucking age of consent. Most people, I don't even think knew what it was.
I'm just glad those fucking days are gone.
They just figured she looks grown, she's grown enough. You know.
Dudes are so fucking gross, man. They're so gross.
Probably wasn't just dudes though either.
That's just gross.
Didn't you see fucking Midnight Cowboy?
Well, I know, but
that little cowboy, he's like 7. He's fucking hitting that 40-year-old woman having sex with him. Yeah. I think it was both ways.
Probably, but everyone was kind of gross back then.
Yeah.
I gotta feel
they were 60s and 70s, man.
They didn't really have, it was all that lead gasoline.
Leaded gasoline and all those drugs, and
I told you, man.
People said, "Oh, it's okay."
It's funny that you always say
sexual
that
liberation
about all the, which, like I said, that's all well and good, but it's like let's leave the children alone, okay? That's a whole other issue.
They probably justified it like, we're liberating the children.
Right, which,
yeah,
like I said,
free yourself from these limitations.
That's some fringe shit right there. That's always been fringe shit.
Yeah, well, there's been fucking Marxist philosophy with all those fucking writers in France and shit that were saying that the age of consent was an artificial construct. That was something that adults were that a kid could decide for themselves. That was there, man. They got people that were fighting for that. That was all that NAMLA, man boy love association.
Well, like I said, that's very fringe. That's always been very fringe.
Yeah, but they were getting that shit from academia.
Oh, I know.
Books
but like I said,
that's
very fringe, even in academia.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they're crazy.
Even other
Academics
people
are
were
fucking
just kind of
crazy.
like, they're not all crazy.
I think they're
Tom.
fucking
Come on now. Settle down. We're never going to get through this story with you going off on all these rants. All these unrelated rants that you're going off on. Juan says, what is that drink? It looks good. It's rum and...
Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper, I think. Or actually, it's
generic
Dr. Pepper. It's Dr. Publix. It's Dr. Publix.
Dr. Publix.
Is actually what it is.
Yeah, hold on, I'm going to make some.
But yeah. So, whatever the case, Rhoades' dad killed himself before he went to trial for the molestation charge. And at some point after that, Rhoades was involved in some kind of robbery, like while he was in the military, and he got a dishonorable discharge. So, yeah, so his life's kind of fallen apart at this point. Like I said, I don't know if this would have happened anyway, or if this was like a big formative event. Who knows? There's no way to go back and check. So after he got dishonorably discharged, he started going to college, but he couldn't hack it. He dropped out. And then, much like a lot of serial killers, he wanted to be a cop. So he went and applied, to be a cop, and he was rejected because of the dishonorable discharge, so they didn't let him in, which kind of blows my mind. You'd think you would have let him in anyway, but you know, maybe back then they weren't as desperate for people. But yeah, so again, that is a very serial killer thing, like wanting to be a cop. But they said no, we don't want you to be a cop. Now over these kind of years where he was in his late teens, early 20s, and into his late 20s, he actually married 3 times. Now, with his first wife, he had a son who I don't think he gave one whiff of a shit about. Like, he never talked about him. I don't even know what the kid's name is. And I'm sure the kid does not want to be doxxed or have anything to do with this motherfucker. Because this motherfucker is still alive, by the way. He's in prison, but he's still alive. Thank you very much, Zach. Not to derail proceedings further, but have y'all ever done a show on Jack Unterweger, yeah. His story is crazy as fuck. That would be real entertaining. I've heard that name and I can't even remember like what he did, but just remind me because I don't have my, where's my thing?
Who was that?
That's what I mean. I've heard that name, but I can't remember like the context in which I heard it.
What's up, Zach?
I also had to write down because I think somebody put in the comments like a movie they wanted us to review, but. Oh, and Erica also says off topic, but when you are able, you guys should do a show on the Cape Coral Strangler. I used to live in Cape Coral. So yeah, okay, yeah. I don't think we've done a show on that either. So yeah. I always write these down, then I put them in the polls. Yeah. So he's married 3 times. I don't think anybody knows what the names of his first 2 wives were or what the name of his son was that he had with his first wife. But because they wouldn't let him be a cop, he basically just went through a string of kind of like, you know, just blue collar type of jobs. Like he worked in grocery stores, warehouses, he was a waiter, shit like that. But eventually he became a long haul trucker, which is where the trouble started. Also around this time period, he started getting real into BDSM. Now, we know a lot of people in the BDSM scene, and no one would claim this motherfucker because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, been to many BDSM fucking fetish nights and shit.
And 99% of those people are lovely ass people. Yeah. And honestly,
most of it's fashion.
I kind of feel like people that are into BDSM, maybe even more than normies or regular people that aren't into that kind of stuff, are very aware of issues of consent and things like that, because that's a really important thing. You know, if you're with a consenting partner and you're like, look, we want to do this, that, and the other thing, you have to have like very like discussions about what you're going to do and like what's too far and all this other kind of stuff. So they're very aware of all those kind of boundaries. So
there's a name for everything too.
So yeah, so they tend to be a lot more cool and a lot more chill and a lot more open about that kind of stuff, because you have to have those discussions with people that you're doing this stuff with, because you don't want anybody to like not have a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're in a scene, so they're not all pent up. They're not weird as well. Some of the shit they do is weird, but they're venting it.
Right.
Most of it's real normal though. Most of the shit's real normal. A lot of it has to do with just fashion. That you know, fucking the in Boston, the goth nights and the fetish nights were back to back, and it was pretty much a lot of crossover between the two. The only difference was kind of like the music and what people wore, and they would put on little shows, but man, they were like R-rated. That was it, topless. You know, they'd do something like wax shows and fucking painting people with fucking latex and bondage stuff, rope bondage. But it was a dance club too. You know, wasn't any sex happening in there though. Not the one we went to. That was Ben Rhoades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are, well, the ones where actual live sex is happening, those are usually like members only,
yeah,
or
they're not to the public.
It's like a private party. Like you have to have some kind of membership, or you have to pay some
Right.
big amount, or you have to be on a list or something like that. They don't just let randos in for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Because of fuckers like this, you know what I mean? So this dude, he starts hanging out in fetish clubs and swingers clubs and stuff like that. And at this point in time, he was with his third wife, who they do know her name. Her name was Deborah. And she alleged later on, and this does not surprise me a bit, and I absolutely believe her, that he was very physically abusive, very sexually abusive, very verbally abusive. And basically said he was constantly trying to get her involved in the swingers clubs, like, you know, to have sex with other men and shit like that, trying to get her into, like, real, like, hardcore BDSM and stuff like that, even though she was really not into it. Like, she did kind of give in and do it a few times just because she loved him and blah-de-blah, but she later said she just really wasn't into it, and she felt like he was, like, forcing her to do it and was always kind of, like, shaming her into, oh, you're a prude and blah-de-blah and all this other kind of crap.
Yeah, fetish is a sexual orientation. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, some people are into it and some people aren't. It's just, you know, and that's okay. Like, everybody likes their own thing, and if you're not into it, you're not into it. You know what I mean? Making somebody do it if they don't want to do it.
They can't get into it.
They, you know, it's just, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Also, and we both noted this because I was watching, there's a, I know I bring this up a lot, but the Time Suck podcast with Dan Cummins, he did like a 2-hour thing on this guy.
Yeah.
And he was kind of got hung up on this too because we both got kind of hung up on this little fact. But his, Rhoades' ex-wife Deborah said that he got real aroused by seeing her suffer when she was sick. Like, she got lupus at one point, and like she was in the hospital, and she was talking about like how he would be there like visiting her and how he was like visibly like getting off on her being like all sick and suffering like, and died, shit.
Right, yeah. Weird.
Which, yeah, I kind of got hung up on that little fact too.
Well, this dude was extreme, man. He wanted the people to die.
Yeah.
You know, people dying was part of his fucking sexual orientation.
He just seemed to really enjoy... Well, he's like a classic sexual sadist, right?
Yeah.
He just got a chubby watching people suffering, watching people in pain. And like he seemed like he couldn't get off any other way.
Yeah, well, it's like some kid, you give him a fucking, like, beautiful fucking radio-controlled model airplane or something. He flies it around, then he slowly starts tearing it apart, and eventually he crashes that bitch. Wow! That's what he was doing to women.
Yeah, it's almost like a weird, like, childish...
childlike thing, yeah. Just
kind of
maxing something out until...
Here's this awesome thing, let's break it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I interpret it. And then he's imagining after he did it, like... Man, she had the haircut that I wanted, and she had the dress on that I wanted. All that shit happened, and I killed her. She's gone. Fuck that bitch. I'll be the last thing she ever saw. It's that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. Her life is over. Yeah. I was the pinnacle of her experience. You know what I mean?
He probably was thinking that something along those
now she's mine
lines.
forever. That type of deal.
Gross.
I have what I like to call strategic empathy. All right. Whenever you're fighting an opponent or sizing up a fucking possible opponent, you have to put yourself in their shoes. What makes them tick? What makes them operate? What are their value systems? What do they like? What do they don't like? So I try to do that with these serial killers. Try to put myself in the shoes. What is he getting off on? Some of it I can kind of see, but then the death part, I'm like, nah, what are you talking about? But that's what they get off of. The finality of it is somehow real. You know what I mean? Like, it's different when you're role playing. So, you know what I mean? And nothing happens. Nobody's killed. And then it's like...
Ideally.
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't even... Maybe even the role playing doesn't involve death.
Right.
It's just that it's not real. It's like, it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
This dude wants it to be real, and he wants it to be final.
Right.
And he eroticizes that. That's just weird to me.
So
I can kind of see it, but I can't feel it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't feel it the way that they feel it. I was like,
well, that's what I mean, and I kind of get that too,
coming.
because I read about all of these motherfuckers, and like when I read about their motivations and how their mind works and stuff, intellectually I understand how they got from A to B, but obviously I don't feel that way.
Right.
So I can't really relate to it, but I can understand how they arrived at that conclusion.
Fetish type sexual stuff is fantasizing or seeing something that is fucking kind of like wrong or maxed out, and it gets you off. You know what I mean? Because it's like you've broken like a threshold. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like this extreme to where you're killing somebody, you can't reverse off of it. You can't come back off of that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's just like what Taylor Shabusiness. She said, I loved him so much I killed him. She fucking chewed his dick up.
She even said that to the cop. She's like, have you ever loved something so much that you just, I'm going to kill it. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's what he's... I
Just
heard
you,
her say
baby.
that, and I was going like, well, there's kind of like... I can kind of extrapolate other things that are kind of like sexually arousing, and it does seem like it's excessive, but it's not death.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So could we argue?
So
I don't really want to argue this because I don't think this is the case, but we're kind of dancing around the thing. It's like, well, could somebody's fantasies be so... because some people have some kind of fucked up sexual fantasies, okay? And, like, they never... And 99% of those people never do anything bad in real life because it's just a fantasy, right? And honestly, like, most of the time, the fantasies that you have, like, if you did it in real life, it wouldn't be as cool. So it's just kind of, like, better to just not do it in real life. Or, whatever it is.
a good example is that many women have fantasies about being in a situation that is non-consensual. But it's just a fantasy. That girl doesn't want that to happen to her.
No.
Okay, but that's very common.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you fantasize about something doesn't mean that you want that to happen in real life.
Right.
Those are two completely different
Somehow or
things.
another, dudes like this started to fantasize about it, then they wanted it to happen. And I don't know what level of development you have to be in, or what lack of development you need. Like, that might be very regressive. You know what I mean? Like,
it seems like that, yeah.
Like, maybe you can only get off on that if you don't have, like, full self-awareness, or, you know what I mean? Or you have zero empathy. Or maybe he do have empathy, but he gets off on the fact that he's ignored his empathy. And maybe it causes him to suffer, like Albert Fish. He would cause himself to suffer over the crimes that he did. He'd have Jesus fucking fantasies and stick needles up in his taint to punish himself and weird shit like that, It's just weird. The human mind's so
that
fucked
dude
up
was
that,
out there, even for a serial killer.
Yeah.
Holy
Sex is
crap.
very mental and is very psychological. And somehow these guys arrived at this fucking behavior. I don't understand it.
No, I don't either, really. Like I said, it's just kind of like a lot of people have extreme sexual fantasies. There's nothing wrong with that. But in some ways, you could see that a person that had a particular mindset and had particularly extreme sexual fantasies, there's like, I'm going to do this in real life and like see what it's like. And then they kind of liked it, and then they just kept like escalating.
Yes, yeah.
But like I said, I think like 99% of the people that have fantasy. But the thing about it is that most people's sexual fantasies are not violent.
You're right. That's the thing I was talking about.
It doesn't have to do with like killing somebody.
Right. He somehow romanticized this, I think.
Right. I mean, a lot of people have like, shit, like weird shit that they think about, but it's like they're not killing anybody. I don't think I've ever.
He was reading some kind of
that.
fetish material, looking at fetish stuff, maybe the story of O or something, and he's maxing it out where he's just going to totally use a woman up.
Yeah.
And it's a one-way trip. It's not a fantasy. It's real.
And even then, like, I mean, BDSM, I kind of feel like, especially in this day and age, in this post Shades of Grey world, it's not even particularly controversial or scandalous or anything like that anymore. A lot of people do that. I feel like that's a pretty common fetish.
Yeah, he
didn't do anything super extreme, like, oh, I'm gonna like, because there's some people that have like fetishes for people being their limbs cut off and like being
dudes would cut their own fingers
car
off.
crashes and things like that.
Weird shit like that.
So he's not that.
In 1990, 98, he was caught, I think, in 1990, wasn't he?
Yeah.
By the time that was rolling around, fetish was almost going mainstream in the damn club scene for Generation X. For his generation, it still would have been cutting edge. But then,
and I feel like
60s and 70s, they did weird shit too. So maybe
a lot of the documentaries about him kind of play up the whole fetish thing as if that was maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm like reading something that's not there, but they do seem to think about it's like, oh, bizarre sexual fetish. I'm like, they're not bizarre. The fetishes themselves aren't bizarre. Obviously, the extremes that he took them to
Most of
is.
it's rope suspension.
But most of it, yeah, which millions of people
We-
indulge in all the time completely safely, and it's completely fine. But, you
I
know,
never really
obviously...
saw much into it, but
this-
myself.
Yeah, it's
not
not really
Right.
hugely my thing. I don't mind a little, you know, light stuff like that, but I don't generally like pain all that much.
Yeah.
Some
Most
people
women
do
like
that.
to get roughed up a little bit. They
A,
don't
a little bit.
Yeah, but you're
a
not,
little bit.
You're not putting bruises on them though, you know.
No, fuck no.
Right.
I don't really like that so much.
It's just
you know.
let them know you mean it. Bring that here. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. But like I said, I don't shit on people that like
Right.
extreme pain or anything like that, or people that are like super into piercing or stuff like that.
Size queens.
Yeah,
The
it's
girls out
you know
there-
what I mean. There's all that kind of stuff.
The girls out there,
so,
the whole video, make a whole
Yeah.
fucking video career of what they can fit inside them. Fucking
which is kind of amazing, honestly.
yeah.
But
some of those girls are just like that
I'm
will
just-
not go in there, and that will not
And
go
it
in your
does,
booty.
and you're
It
just
does.
like, well, okay.
God damn.
the human body.
And here's the
is
thing is
amazing.
that some chick could not get to that unless she was into that. You know, so it wasn't just making money. That was just her fetish. It's a fetish thing. To get bigger and bigger. Okay. Whatever.
Desolate one is asking about corseting.
What about it?
Um,
And corsets?
I do, yeah. I don't wear them all the time, but I
Yeah.
wear them out usually.
Yeah.
And they're real ones. They're steel boned
Yeah.
and everything. Which, you know, I don't, honestly, I don't wear them all the time because they're not super comfortable, obviously. But I do like the look of it.
If you keep it on all the time over a period of a few months, your rib cage will kind of start getting a little.
Yeah.
Melissa was corseted so much that she had to back off of it. She was getting too small.
Yeah, you can do too much of that.
Yeah.
I honestly just wear them when I go out.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a pain because, like, you can't really sit comfortably. You can't eat with them on. You know what I mean? Depending on how tight they are. I don't usually do them too tight because I like to dance and stuff, but I do wear them when I'm going out. All right, so where was I?
We're having a good show. It's okay.
Is it?
It's okay. Yeah.
I'm only,
Everybody seems to be having fun.
I'm only right here.
We're getting through it. We're getting through it. We got plenty of time.
Okay, just make me feel better about it because
Yeah,
I'm always
plenty
just
of
kind of like, oh my god, it's like, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how this motherfucker got caught. Like I said, he got caught kind of accidentally, a little bit. So this happened on April 1st, 1990. Now this was in Arizona, a place called Casa Grande. So there's a state trooper, Arizona state trooper, and his name is Mike Miller. And he sees this semi-truck, like it was a Peterbilt semi-truck. And it was kind of pulled over, it was like on the curb. I think it was like off the, like an on-ramp or something. It was a little bit in the road, so it was kind of in the way, a little bit of traffic. And the hazard lights were on. So he was just kind of like, I wonder what's going on. Like maybe he's having some kind of, mechanical difficulty. Just having some kind of difficulties, right? So he decided to check it out, because it looked a little weird. So he picks his flashlight up and he kind of walks around the truck, like looking for where the driver is, if he's outside or if something's wrong with the truck, like mechanically or whatever. And then he starts hearing like some noises coming from inside the truck. Kind of sounded like screaming a little bit. So he gets up on the runner and he like peeks into the truck and you could see into, well, if you looked in the window, you could see into the sleeper cab. When he looked into the sleeper cab, he saw that there was a naked woman who was chained to the wall. And when he put the flashlight in and like looked at her, she saw him and she started screaming like even louder, right? And then he says this dude just comes like out of the darkness. I guess this was Rhoades, obviously, and he kind of came out of the back of the sleeper cab like into the front cab, and then like he comes out, out of the driver's side door. So the dude comes out and he's like cool as a cucumber, right? He's just like, oh, everything's okay, it's fine. And he immediately like climbs down from the truck and he puts his hands up on the side of the truck, like, frisk me or whatever. And he said, oh, I have a gun in my back pocket. It was a .25 caliber automatic pistol.
It wasn't 25, I don't think. It was 22. It was a Jennings 22, I think.
That's what the source said. It was a 25 caliber automatic.
Okay, well,
pistol.
Jennings made both. It was the same gun in 2 different calibers.
So I'm just saying what the...
Yeah.
I didn't make it up. I'm just saying that's what the source said.
Because the shell casings found at the other scenes of the crime later on were 22 long rifle. Maybe he had 2. Maybe they took this one. Well, no, this was the end. Maybe he got another one because he got arrested and he never saw freedom after this.
No.
It's a fucking piece of shit pistol he had. It's called a Jennings. They were real low cost. In the 90s, you could get one for about $70, $60, $70. Kind of a pot metal zinc blowback, small pocket pistol for low end defense. Not very powerful, not very reliable. And they had a lot of problems. The magazine springs would get weak over time, and they'd have problems feeding, and the more you shot them, they'd shoot themselves to pieces over time. They were just very low cost self-defense. And they weren't really good at self-defense. I mean, not very powerful, and they malfunctioned a lot. And they didn't even like to be stored. If it sat there, they would kind of go stale. All the springs would go bad in them. Not recommended. But that's what he was using.
Yeah, I had wondered this too, Xanada. Xanada said, okay, I'm not a killer, but why the hell would you torture someone with the truck flashlights on to draw attention? I kind of wondered that too. Like, why would you pull over? From all of the accounts that I read, like some of the accounts were like slightly different, but I did see an interview with the dude that actually pulled him over, Miller. And he said that it was pulled over like on the side of like an on-ramp, but it was partially in the road.
Yeah.
So it was kind of in the way of like passing traffic.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of traffic because it was like the middle of the night, but the hazard lights were on.
Yeah.
So it's like if you had a naked, unwilling woman chained up in your fucking truck, why would you put your hazard lights on and like risk somebody pulling you over and being like, hey, what's going on in here? Which is exactly what happened.
The cop said he checked because the hazards were on and didn't have triangles out.
Yeah.
There's these little things they're supposed to put out, little triangles
Yeah, the
with
little
reflectors on it.
red triangles.
Just wanted to see
reflectors.
exactly what was going on with the truck. Well, you're reading into the situation. It could have been he was having such a problem with her because she'd been biting him and shit, fighting.
I don't blame her.
He had only just abducted her for about like an
just
hour.
earlier
Just
that
earlier
day,
that
like
day.
an hour or two.
He only had her for about an hour or so. So I think he might have pulled over and put the flashers on. Because at a distance, it just looked like hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? To not call attention. It would call more attention if the fucking truck was all black, probably, and blacked out, dark. Because the cop would go, "What happened here? Is this truck abandoned?"
Probably he should have just like pulled off at a gas station or a rest stop or something.
Well, yeah,
would have been less weird.
he didn't want anybody around because she was fucking yelling. But just think, the cop gave you the answer. Had he had triangles out, the cop would have fucking
Probably
driven
wouldn't
off.
have, yeah.
Okay, so adding more
Don't
to
tell
that
people that.
adding more to that display probably would have fucking gotten people to just go around it.
Yeah.
So hiding in plain sight is just being normal, Some serial killers, I heard one story, a dude fucking walked out of his car and he had his fucking bag, and in the bag was a girl's head, and he just fucking walked around all day with a girl's head in a bag and fucking went up into his fucking apartment with it. Nobody noticed it because he wasn't acting strange, had a girl's head in his bag.
So pro tip, if you're acting normal, you can walk around with a severed head in your bag all day long and no one will even question you. Well, honestly, if you're...
What would you think? Who would think that there was a fucking bag?
Well, that's what I mean. Nobody would think that.
Yeah,
like I
right.
said, when I'm walking around in a crowd of people, I'm not looking at those people. Mm-hmm. Unless they're like acting really weird or shifty or something like that. If everybody's just acting like fucking cash, then I'm not gonna fucking... And they're counting on that, I guess.
Yeah.
But the fact that he had his hazards on and he didn't have the triangles out, the reflectors, was, I think, what kind of clued this cop in. He's like, I don't really know what's going on. So that's why he stopped. Luckily, because I don't know how much longer it would have been before they caught this motherfucker if this dude hadn't found this. So yeah. So he looks in there, he sees the naked woman, he's like, holy shit, what the fuck's going on? So Rhoades gets out. They didn't know who he was at this point, obviously. And he's just kind of like completely normal. He's just like this is completely a regular thing that happens. It's like, I don't think he said at the scene that it was all consensual, but that's kind of that was kind of the game that he was playing. That was kind of the implication that he was making. So, and he was totally fine about it. He's like, yeah, I got a gun in my pocket. It's like, it's all good. It's, we're fine here, blah, blah. So the cop was like, okay, I don't know what the fuck is going on right here, but it seems like not good. So what he did was he handcuffed Rhoades, like put his handcuffs behind his back, and then he put him in the back of the patrol car and put the seatbelt across him and then closed him in. And he said, and then he goes back to the truck. He called for backup because he's like, obviously I need some help on this because he was just, patrol officer or whatever. He's like, I need some detectives out here to like check this out. So he goes back to the woman and he said, I can't, I can't untie you. She actually had, it wasn't it was a horse bit and a horse bridle.
Yeah, right.
That was like chained to the wall, and she was like all chained to the wall, and she was screaming her fucking head off. And he's like, well, I can't. He covered her up, but he's like, I can't move you yet because the detectives need to get here. I called for backup. It's like, I got the guy in the truck. He's not gonna hurt you. It's all right, and all this other kind of stuff. Now, so he checks on her, and then he goes back to his patrol car and discovers that Rhoades has actually managed to get his handcuffed hands in front of him. Like, I guess he went like under his butt
stepped over him.
Yeah, and then like stepped over him.
I'd like to practice that just in case anybody ever fucking puts me in
handcuffs. I mean,
it's
probably a good skill to have, I would imagine. But yeah, he had done that.
And bitch had a handcuff key on his
And he got the belt off, and he had a handcuff key in his pocket. I don't know if it was his or if he like palmed it from the top.
Because he had handcuffs.
That's right.
He was holding all these girls with handcuffs.
He had lots of handcuffs.
So handcuff keys were kind of universal. He had one on his key ring.
Yeah.
And he had practiced that. How to get the fucking sit over the cuffs and get your legs through them like that. And he was going to get his fucking keys out and unlock his cuffs.
Yeah.
And fucking attack that cop.
And he was in the... Now, we kind of had a discussion about this because I said, I thought... Please correct me if I'm wrong, if there are any cops or people that know any more about it than me. But the way that Miller was talking, he was like, man, he could have got out of the car and killed me and then like just got in the truck and fucking took off or whatever. I was like, I thought that the rear doors of cop cars would not open from the inside. That's correct, right?
Yeah. There's no door handles or locks on the inside of the fucking rear door panels.
That's what I thought. I mean,
it's a jail cell.
I have seen some perpetrators that were able to kick out the windows. I have seen that happen on a couple of occasions.
There's a rack behind. There's a grill and a big steel wall in between and no fucking foot room. I know because my car is a fucking Ford Lincoln Mercury, and the Crown Victoria version of it was the cop cars that we use here, and the fucking taxis. And in 1990, it would have been one of the Crown Victorias, probably an early model Crown Victoria. So the back seat is a cell in a cop car. There's no door handles on the inside. There's no door locks. There's no window control on the inside. And if you look forward, there's there's a thing like a roll bar, you know what I mean, on the inside of the cabin with a flat metal plate. And then the top part of it, where the cops' heads are at, is a grill. You can't put your fingers through it or anything.
Yeah.
And you can't shoot through it. You can't stab through it.
Yeah, they thought of that.
They thought of all that. So I don't know how he thought he was going to get out of there. He was just trying to get the cuffs off.
Yeah, which he would have done.
Yeah, and he probably what he was going to do is pretend like he was cuffed. And when the cop opened the door to get him out, he was going to tackle the cop.
That's kind of what I was thinking, that he was going to wait for him to open the door. Because I was like, I don't think he would have been able to open the door. Because you can't open the door.
He went in there and fucking opened the door anyway. Remember that? Opened the door.
The cop came and was like, motherfucker.
He saw him
and then he like recuffed him and everything like that. But by that time, like the backup had come there. So, so he didn't really get out.
He only would have had a chance if he was alone.
Yeah. But that's the thing.
He still wouldn't have had much chance. That cop would have drew on him and plugged him. Would have shot him. I know I wouldn't. one-on-one in darkness at night. You found him with a fucking chained up girl. I'm not going to struggle with that dude to try to get him recuffed again. I'm just going to draw and fucking plug him.
Probably just shoot him. I mean, do the
Fuck
world a
you,
favor.
dude. Fuck you.
I mean, whatever that is, it's not good.
No.
Right?
No, You've gotten out of the cuffs? I'm going to fucking... No, hell no. Pow, 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 pow.
And I'm not generally an advocate of just like, oh, he drew a gun on me. You know what I mean? Because they shoot a lot of innocent people that way. But like in this situation...
No, this is justified. He got out of the cuffs.
No one's going to cry.
He got out of the cuffs. You're going to try...
well.
He was lucky. I'd have shot him.
I mean, he got caught red-handed, to be fair. And as much as he tried to play it off like it was consensual and it was role-playing and stuff like that, I mean, obviously the girl was not having a good time, as they discovered when they took her back to the police station later on.
There's too much... Think about it. You're going to wrestle this dude alone in darkness, risking your own life and that girl's life to get him recuffed? You're not going to do that. And even think about that makes you a fucking wuss. Kill him. Saving you and that girl. Don't fucking take the chance of losing a fucking wrestling match over some fucking
I mean, he
sicko
did
offender.
successfully recuff him, though, so I guess there was that. But
well,
honestly...
somebody was there already, though.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was how the timeline played out. But like I said, in that situation, if it had been just me, like, probably I would have just...
In the cop's defense, though, that was a pretty beefy cop, and Rhoades is a fucking lightweight. He's not a physically strong guy.
Yeah.
Skinny arms and shit.
He was pretty thin.
Skinny arms, fat, or, skinny fat.
Yeah, so everybody shows up. They got him recuffed and got him in the patrol car. They take him back to the station. Now, at the station, the woman, who was 27 years old, I believe her name was Kathleen Vine. I've heard her referred to by at least 2 other aliases, but the FBI Files program I watched and a couple of other more recent things said that was her name, so she must have been okay with her name being released. I'm assuming that's her real name, so that's what I'm going to call her. So, like I said, because a lot of older articles that were written had pseudonyms. So, they bring her in. They took pictures of all her injuries. She was kind of all fucked up. Like, her face was all... She'd obviously been beaten up. I believe she had also had her nipples and her labia pierced by various things, pins, fish hooks, things of that nature. And like I said, she'd also been beating the crap out of her. Now, she said that Rhoades had picked her up at a place called Rip Griffin's Truck Stop, which was a little way from Phoenix, Arizona. And she said that she was in the habit of hitchhiking. She would go here and there, like visiting friends and stuff like that. She said that at the truck stop, Rhoades had seemed like a nice dude. Don't they always? Had seemed very polite, and she really didn't see any reason to fear him. He didn't seem scary or anything like that. So she got in the truck, and they were on the road for a bit. I think he only had her in custody, if you want to call it that, for an hour or so, and she went into the back and fell asleep, I think. And at that point, when she fell asleep, it seemed like that's what he was waiting for. So he basically shackled her, while she was sleeping. And then, in the back of the truck, because they found this when they were looking, he had this briefcase that had all of his stuff in it. Had all of the dildos in there, nipple clamps, had all of that crap in there.
Yeah.
And it was all, the cops were like, well, this is obviously someone who does this a lot, because everything was very clean and was very well organized. You could tell that this was somebody that,
he was into this shit.
That he was very into this
He's
stuff. Right. And, because the way it was laid out and everything.
Now, all the piercing stuff, okay, sounds fucking pretty monstrous, putting fish hooks through people's nipples and shit. I pierced Jed's nipples. It was pretty rough. I got lightheaded doing it. It was the first time I'd ever done it. All right, but I'm brave. I'll do something fucking for the first time without even fucking having experience. Done right, too.
You weren't the one that had to actually experience it.
For Jen, that shit was... It was... I could fucking... It was hard. I couldn't do it again.
I almost fainted when you did it. Now, I did faint.
I was kind of holding it together going, man, because I was getting empathy pains doing it.
I did faint later when you were trying to change them out.
Yeah, after it all healed up, I changed
After it healed up and you were changing them,
Yeah,
I
guess
fainted
she had
then.
a flashback.
I fainted then.
But check this out. We got a friend named Aurora, pretty little blonde. She can stick spikes through her back and through her legs the size of pencils and suspend herself from fucking trapeze, and she does shows doing that. And it's not fake. I got all kinds of video of it on my fucking Instagram.
I don't think I'd be as stressed out by that. I mean, nipples are just like a very...
Because it's small.
Because it's so little and
yeah.
it seems very delicate.
Right.
And it's just kind of... So I think that more bothers me. Like, the back thing doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, fucking... I saw Aurora take a spike the size of a fucking crochet needle, big around as a pencil, and just fucking grab her thigh, stick it right through the top of her thigh, and then she put her apparatus there to... And then attach it to a bunch of chains, and her friend put them in the back. The two girls doing it to each other. Then they're swinging from it. And the whole club going crazy, going wild over it. Women can take a lot of pain.
Yeah, I mean...
They have a very high pain threshold.
I do have a very high pain threshold.
Yeah.
But like I said, the nipple piercing, that was... It's not the worst pain I've ever experienced, but it's up there. Probably number 2 or number 3, for sure. Yeah, Tammy's laughing at you. Yeah, Tom is brave sticking a needle into Jenny's nipples.
No, you don't understand how mentally hard that was.
Well, like I said,
Yeah.
I was the one that actually had to endure the pain. You didn't actually have to.
I had to keep my fucking mind right because I know it shit hurts. All right?
It did.
And fucking, I'm getting kind of lightheaded doing it. And I'm trying to do shit in order. And I fucked the order up on the second one.
You did kind of fuck it up, yeah.
And then I had to redo it. Because what you can do is you can stick the needle through there and then leave the needle in and then just use the fucking... Use the bar. I was going to put a bar in there to push the old needle out. And I did it the wrong way. I had to do it twice. I forgot exactly what I did. And you got to do all this for the first time. And you got to have a brave face on. Because if she were to see any doubt in me, she would have freaked out. So you're trying to, and here's the deal.
I knew that you didn't know what you were doing. I knew.
Well, we had planned it out.
I know.
It's just here. You know what happened?
But in the back of my mind, I was like, he's gonna fuck this up somehow. Like, he's never done this before.
They came out beautiful.
They did, but you did do it wrong a couple of times.
The second one.
But it worked out okay in
in
the end. But it was
the thing that fucking threw me
sure.
was to take that piercing needle and put it through that areola material. I just thought it was going to be like me sticking a needle in my leg, or when I'm shooting up fucking...
Yeah, because we take injections all the time.
Take injections all the time. I thought it was going to be like that.
No.
Hell no, man. It was like pushing it through bone. It was cracking and popping. It was super elastic and real tough.
Yeah.
Much tougher than meat. And I was like... And I got about halfway through
and it was
first
a big needle. Like,
I got halfway through that first needle and I was just like, oh fuck,
boy.
man.
This was a mistake.
Yeah, I was like, and I know it's going to be like this, I probably wouldn't have done it.
No.
I told another, after the shit was down, I told a friend of mine, he's that guy that does all the porn and shit. He goes, yeah, I was a professional piercer for years. I told him about it. He goes, yeah, that first time was fucking rough, isn't it? He goes, that shit fucking is hard as shit.
Yeah, because you expect it's just going to be
it to just be smooth as butter. It's just a nipple.
Well, like,
man.
I pierced,
I
pierced my own ears and it was like nothing.
Yeah.
So.
No, piercing through nipples.
Because that's just skin.
You hear it crack and pop and crunch. And it's fucking hard to push through there. It's like pushing it through leather.
Yeah, it was something.
Yeah.
Ryan asked, "Have you guys seen Long Legs yet?" Yeah, we did. We did a review of it. Not this past Monday, but the Monday before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I love Oz Perkins.
Desolate One asked why Rhoades had such a shitty pistol. Why didn't he buy a better one? Back in this era, there wasn't internet. If you didn't have a dad when you were a kid to teach you the fundamentals, you would just think a gun is a gun is a gun. And you might come across a gun like that. He probably didn't buy it from a dealer. It was probably just something another truck driver sold him. He said, oh, yeah, that's a gun. Probably only shot it a couple times. A dude that would, in those days, would know the difference between good ones and bad ones would be coming from a gun scene, going to the range. You know, your dad went to the range. You were reading the rags, guns and ammo, fucking all kinds of, they were all different kinds of good, assault rifle fucking books and shit like that, magazines that were around, and you would learn defensive handguns. there was a lot of shit out during those days that would have been good, but prices were different, you know. You weren't going to get anything good for cheap unless it was a .38 special revolver, and that's kind of big, so he wouldn't have carried that. He wouldn't have wanted that because they're kind of fat. They're kind of hard to conceal. He wanted something small and slick. Small, slick automatics that were effective would have been like, in this era, Walther PP, Walther PPK, shit like that. And now you're talking $400 or $500. That's, in those days, guys would think that was too expensive. Go to the restroom.
Ozzy Zach said, I knew a girl that did that nipple piercing. Always wondered how long the holes take to heal. Not as long as you might think. I don't remember how long it took mine, but it was less than a week easily. Maybe just a couple of days. It didn't really take that long at all. It's like, even every now and then, I'm still kind of like cognizant that they're there. Because every now and then you get out of the shower and you'll be like drying with a towel and it'll like catch. You know what I mean? You'll be like, oop. You know what I mean? But it's just like, I don't really think about it that much anymore. But it was probably like a week or so. Let me see. I saw somebody say something. Oh, Ryan said, Long Legs was definitely inspired by Cure in a good way. Yeah, and I meant to mention that on my review, and I think I forgot to mention it. But yeah, I saw that brought up a lot as kind of like an inspiration for it, for sure. That's another movie I need to review now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah. All right, so let's see. Where was I? So, yeah. Okay. So, they're interviewing Kathleen Vine. And she said that she'd been picked up in this truck stop, like, earlier in the day. And that she basically, like, he got her, as soon as he got her in the cab, like, you know, chained her up and, like, started torturing her. He had whipped her. She had, like, a big, long welts all over and had pierced her in various places with fish hooks and whatnot. He also told her that his name... He gave a lot of his victims the name Dusty Rhoades. And I'm just like...
Wasn't Dusty Rhoades a
I don't know
wrestler?
why. Yeah, I think it was, actually. I was like, why does that... I mean, I already hated him, but that made me hate him even more. I'm like, that's so weird. Now, but he actually said that his name was Whips and Chains. Yeah. Which she's like, that's his CB handle, right? And they're like, yeah, that's his CB. Shit. Whips and Chains. Come on.
Basic as fuck. Basic bitch.
It really is. I was just kind of like, come on, you can come up with something more creative.
Now, before we get too far off about the nipple piercing thing, most people think that when you pierce a nipple that it's just the little end part of the nipple. It's got to be deep and back in on it. Actually, you're going through the areola. It's a bar with two little balls, colored balls on the end. It's pretty, like jewelry. So that's the problem. You're not just going through the little nipple sticking out. You're going through the areola. You're going through breast material. That's why it's harder than you think it's going to be. I thought it was going to be smooth as butter. It's not. It's like going through hard rubber.
Yeah, it was something.
It felt almost like there's bone in it, cracking and popping. And it disturbed me, man. I was halfway through that first one. I was going,
imagine
fuck.
How I felt.
I was like, fuck, man. Should I be doing this? But then...
I was sitting up at first.
Yeah.
And he started doing it, and I said, I think I might black out.
Yeah.
Like, I was at least cognizant enough to say that I think I might black out, so...
Yeah.
The second one I laid down for, just so if I blacked out, I wouldn't go anyplace.
Bill said the first couple times it was hard for him, too. But he says after a while, you just get to where you just don't think about it. You just fast, hard, go right through it.
I mean, had you done it, like, super quickly, it probably would have been a lot better. But it seemed like really
but
slow.
But you don't have the confidence.
Because you'd never done it before.
I'd never done it, right, yeah.
So it seemed painfully slow.
Yeah. I was trying to be, like, careful.
Because I was like, are you done yet? Are you done? Jesus Christ.
Trying to be careful, yeah.
I'm like, I think I might pass out. It's like, it hurts. It didn't bleed much, though. No. Strangely.
I think a lot of it was psychological, too.
Yeah. Phantom said this one girl I knew had to use shot glasses filled with salt water on her nipple piercings for the healing process. It was pretty hot to see. I just put, we had some kind of antibiotic gel or something like that and put it on there for a few days and it was fine.
I put that on the bars when I slipped them through.
And it was fine.
It was antibiotic lube.
Yeah. So, fucking Whips and Chains. So another thing that she told the cops was that old Whips and Chains had told her that he had been doing this for 15 years, which, if you're doing the math, means that he started in 1975, which is about when he became a trucker. Would it surprise me that he was doing this the whole time? Not at all. you know? They just don't know about it yet. They, like I said, they suspect that he did a lot more than he did. Now, they did ask her if she had been raped, and she said no, that she got rescued just in time. She said that she was all restrained, so when he was trying to attack her, she said she was trying to bite him in the throat, but he moved, and she got him in the upper shoulder. And I believe she also bit him on his left thigh as well. And they did actually find bite marks, like, where she said that she bit him. So yeah, but she did have, like, really bad... I mean, she was all messed up. She was all beat up and pierced and shit like that everywhere. And she also told the cops very clearly that she's, like... You know, she could very obviously see that he was getting off on hurting her. Now, the investigators did believe her story, but they were also kind of leery about this because Kathleen Vine also very obviously suffered from some mental issues, particularly paranoid delusions. During the course of the interview, they said, while she was, you know, very clearly giving details of what had happened to her, you know, which all checked out with evidence and stuff like that, she would say, oh, I was on my way to see the president. I was going to give him a microchip. She would say stuff like that, bringing up stuff about underground prisons that nobody escaped from, stuff like that. So it's possible that she could have had some kind of schizophrenia or something like that, because she had, like, some kind of delusions that were kind of, like, mixed in with the real shit that she was saying. So they were kind of worried about it, because they're like, look, if we're going to put this dude on trial, for example... she wouldn't make a very good witness, because somebody could, you know, the defense or whatever could, like, come in and say, hey, she's a nut or whatever, and don't believe anything she says. However, all of the stuff that she said about him, like I said, the bite marks and the shit she described that was in his truck, and, like, the shit that that he had done to her and stuff like that, that all checked out with what they found. So they did believe her. They were just worried that a jury, for example, going forward, like, maybe would not believe her. So they also started questioning Rhoades around this point. And one thing that struck them about him was that he was very cocky, very arrogant. It was clear that he didn't think that he was going to get in trouble for anything. They said he was just kind of yawning and just being like, whatever, I'll be out of here, blah, blah, like, he was like that. And he basically was, like, trying to call this whole thing consensual. He basically said that the woman was, quote-unquote, not playing with a full deck. Like, oh, this is just this crazy bitch I picked up and poor me, blah, 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 kind of thing. That was
I'm taking care of her.
Yeah, that was kind of the way that he was... and he was saying, it's like, oh, well, she seduced me. Like, she jumped in and she's crazy and all this other kind of stuff. And, oh, you don't want to get too involved with these lot lizards because, you know, your dick will fall off and all this other stuff. Like, saying they're all diseased or whatever. Like, he was saying all that kind of crap. So, yeah, so he came across as, like, very arrogant. Like, he didn't think he was going to get into trouble. So, the cops that were questioning him were a little bit... troubled by this, I guess, because they're like, this dude just... he seemed like, they didn't really fall for the shit, but they said they could see how other people might fall for his shit. Like, because they said he was very charismatic, he was very persuasive, he seemed very friendly, kind of chummy, you know, shit like that, and you could tell that he was kind of used to talking his way out of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, had he not been caught red-handed, essentially, they could see how he would get away with shit had this type of thing, like, happened in the past. You know what I mean? Now, they're like, okay, so, well, obviously something bad's going on. So they book him for, at first, aggravated assault, sexual assault, unlawful imprisonment. And because the officer, his name was Barnhart, he suspected, just because of the way that his toolkit looked, which they called it kind of a rape kit, which is not the same thing as like a rape kit when you get raped and you go and they have that thing. But it was just kind of like the briefcase with all the dildos and stuff in it. They're like, we've seen that before with sexual sadists, and his was very refined, what they called. Very clean, very organized. They're like, usually you only see that with dudes that have been doing this for a really long time. So they were sus. So they're like, we need to see like what else is going on with this motherfucker. So the first thing they did was they sent, this was 1990, so they still did teletypes. So they sent a teletype to a superior court judge in Florence, Arizona. And they said, okay, well, we've charged him with stuff, but we need to keep him in custody until we find out more information because we don't want him running around loose, right? Which, you know, obviously. And so they're like, okay, we're going to do that. And then, because he was from Houston, Texas, they're like, we're going to call Houston and see what they've got going on. See if they have anything else that we can use against this dude. And, matter of fact, they did. So he calls Houston, and this detective, named Detective Bomar, calls back. Says, funny you should say something, because a while back, we had a very similar kidnapping case happen here in Houston. And Robert Ben Rhoades was indeed involved in this kidnapping. In this case, Rhoades had kidnapped an 18-year-old woman who is pseudonymously called Shauna Holtz. I don't think that's her real name, but that's what all the things call her. He actually kidnapped her in California and kept her for about a week. I think it was 6 or 7 days. Now, during the time that she was in his custody, he had cut her hair short, he shaved her pubic hair, and had also tortured her in various ways, like, again, pierced her with pins, fish hooks, things like that, and had threatened that he was going to eventually kill her. Now, he drove her around for a little while. He brought her back to Houston in his truck, and then brought her into his apartment, and then chained her up in the apartment, because of course he had like a chain thing, like he had a rack and shit like that you could chain people to in his apartment, because why wouldn't you?
That means she wasn't the first one.
That's what I'm saying. And like I said, that's why I'm not surprised that cops are like, this motherfucker must have like at least raped and killed like a lot more people, because he had the whole setup.
How does he get his rig? Or did he dump the rig for the company and then drive home to his apartment? And how does he transfer her?
Or did he keep the truck at the house?
Or did he keep the truck at the house? How does he get her out of the truck and into his apartment without anybody seeing her? With just ballsy, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know what his house looked like, so maybe he didn't have neighbors that could see him.
From what I saw in the programs, it was like he was on the second floor of a regular bungalow type apartment.
Yeah, I thought it was an apartment
that had been packed full of people.
Yeah.
So what did he show up at 4 a.m. maybe when everybody's asleep?
Probably.
He got a gun at her. Pointing a gun, pointing that .22 at her.
Probably.
You go up there, I'll fucking shoot you.
Probably.
And here's the thing, I know they're women. They're not really fucking thinking right because they're scared to death. They don't have any experience with fighting. Man, if you're gonna fucking kill me, I'm gonna die on my feet, not on my knees. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make you kill me. If I ever get a chance and I'm not fucking tied up or anything, I'd fucking run and make you shoot me in the back.
One of the things that...
I ain't gonna let you torture me to death, you know what I mean? Fucking...
Well, that's what they always say. It's like, if you're a woman and you get grabbed somewhere, don't ever, ever, ever let them take you to a second location.
Make them kill you.
Just do what you got to do. Don't let them take you anywhere.
Yeah, it's a fate worse than death.
I mean,
they're going to use some kind of ruse. The main ruse is it's just a robbery. It's not a robbery. If it's a robbery, they shouldn't have to take you anywhere. It's not a robbery.
Yeah, if they're taking you somewhere else, they're
going to rape and kill you.
Yeah, so
and they might take you to the ATM and get you to draw some money, but they're going to rape and kill you.
Yeah,
don't ever go anywhere with anybody.
Let them take you anywhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that that was brought up on the Time Suck podcast is that they've done a lot of studies about, what's the best way, like women that have escaped from rapists and serial killers, for example. because they were trying to find some common denominator. Like, what was it? Like, did they fight back? Did they talk to the person? Did they do that? There's really nothing. They said, and actually most of the time, if you fight back, it just makes them madder. Basically, the only advice they can give you, they're like, if you're going to fight back, kill the motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much all you can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's rough to do because most dudes have a lot more upper body strength than
Yeah,
women.
but they said that's really all we can tell you, because there's really no fighting back.
You gotta
doesn't
feel the
always
dude
help.
out.
Not fighting back doesn't help. But it's like, if you do fight back, make sure you fucking kill him.
Yeah.
Or incapacitate him and get the fuck away.
You'd
from
have to
him.
feel the dude out.
Yeah.
Dude like Rhoades, he was fucking cold. All right. If you couldn't talk to him, so that's off the mark. You're not going to talk him out of what he's doing. You know. And a lot of times, if you try to talk him out what he's doing, they fucking smack you. So you shut the fuck up, because they know that tactic. Although I think Rhoades liked to hear people begging. You know, he was just like.
Well, he was
liked to hear
just
that.
he was, like I said, he was a classic sexual
Yeah.
sadist. He enjoyed people being fearful. He enjoyed people being in pain. So it's like,
Yeah.
you couldn't, if you begged or
Yeah.
screamed or anything like,
He
he just
just-
liked it more.
He liked that more. Yeah.
He just liked it more.
The girls that survived Rhoades ran. They ran.
Yeah.
A couple of them he made run, and they got away from him.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Okay, here's a good idea. Gary Ridgway, the Greenway killer, the Green River killer, was a fucking wimp. You know, he killed like 40, 50 women. You could put me in a room with 3 Gary Ridgways, I'd kill them all by hand. And that dude fucking managed to kill like 40 women. I don't know how. I guess even a weak dude like that has more upper body strength than the average woman. Or the average woman turning tricks. Spooky when you think about it.
And the thing about it is that, like, a lot of times, particularly women that are sex workers or who are otherwise vulnerable, which a lot of these, and including this dude, did prey upon, you know, were drug addicts or something like that. I mean, if you wave a gun in their face and say, do this and that, most people are going to do it. Most of them are going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, don't.
I mean, yeah.
My-
I mean,
no,
like I
don't.
said, it's hard to say that if you're not in that situation, but it's.
Yeah.
I think that it's best to just
I've had
don't
guns pointed at me.
comply.
I've had guns pointed at me. No. Fight immediately. Make him kill you. Don't give him what he wants. Because he wants sexual satisfaction, and then he's going to kill you. Make him kill you before he gets it. And you have a chance of actually getting away if you do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, that's basically what I got. The gist of the studies that they've done. It's like, if you're gonna fight back, make sure you fucking fight back. You know what I mean? Fucking poke his eyes out, kill his ass. You know what I mean? That's about the only way you're getting away. Or run away when he's not looking. You know what I mean? Pretty much. So yeah, so he takes her to the apartment, chains her up, continues torturing her there. That's when he cut her hair off. He actually cut it off with like a razor. That was one of his things. Like, he would cut everybody's hair short, and he would shave all their pubic hair too. That was another signature. So they're at his apartment for a few hours. I think it was 3 hours. And then he put her back in the truck, and she's just back there chained up as he goes on his work route, because obviously he's still working as a trucker, right? Now, he stopped at I believe it was a brewery, because he was there to make a pickup or a drop off or whatever. And he went inside and he left her in the truck. And it so happened that either he had forgotten to like clamp the handcuffs all the way, or she was able to get out of them, or whatever the case. Whatever the case was, she's like, okay, well, he's out of the truck. I got to get the fuck out of here, like, right now. So she got the fuck out. I mean, and good for her. So she gets out of this truck and she just like runs along the road. She's like barely dressed. She's got a fucking dog leash on, and she's just running on the side of the road, like trying to, you know, flag down a passing motorist, like to get some help or whatever. And I think like a bunch of people passed by, but eventually like somebody stopped and they gave her a ride to. Can you imagine how terrified she must have been? She's like, can you please help me? Like, she had to get in some stranger's car to like go to a phone, and she probably, I'm sure she did not want to do that. She's like, what if this dude is another fucking serial killer, which is possible, right? That's kind of what I was thinking, like, when I was, like, reading about this. But thankfully, this person was a nice person. So they took her to a phone booth, and she called the police, and then the police came. This was in February of 1990, by the way, in case I did not mention that. So when she was brought in, she described Rhoades, and she described the truck. And so the officers, like, put her in the back of the squad car, and then they drove around, like, drove around the area, because it had only been, like, a little while. And so they drove around the area, like, looking for the truck. And they saw it. Like, they saw it pulled over. And so they stopped, and they pulled the truck over. They got him out. And they asked her if that was him. And she looked at him, and then she just, like, looked at the floor and said, no, that's not him. And so they let him go. Now, later on, I think it was later the same day, like, she was in the hospital because she was all fucked up, obviously. She told the cops that was him. But, like, when I saw him again, I was too scared to say anything because there was only 2 cops there, and I thought you guys couldn't protect me.
That's some mind control there.
Which made me so sad. And it's just kind of like, I know somebody said earlier, it's like she's kind of like an accessory because she could have stopped all this. But, well, the thing about it, though, is that a lot of the people that he had killed, he had already killed them at this time. So it wouldn't have necessarily stopped.
It would have saved Regina. Didn't it?
No, wait, no. Oh, maybe because yeah, you're right, because Regina and her boyfriend was a little bit after this. Yeah. That's right. But he had already killed a couple people prior to this. So yeah, you're right. But
always tell.
But the thing about and
that's
like
some fucking mind control.
I understand why people don't.
Yeah.
Like in the situation, like I can't blame people for not, but you have to because it's like you don't know, like this person could go on and do this to other people.
She got all emotional because she was scared of that dude. But that dude there was nothing about that guy that was physically intimidating or scary from say like an average guy's point of view. And physically, I'm not really an average guy. Mentally, I'm not an average guy. The dude's just not intimidating. There were 2 cops there. They're carrying full-size sidearms. And that time would have been 357 Magnum revolvers or 9mm pistols. And at best, that bitch only had a 22. Rhoades was all fucking talk. All right? He thought he was fucking tough. And he's locked up. He's still alive now. I don't know if he's got internet fucking capabilities, but he's an old man now. But I would have beat the tar out of Rhoades fucking in his prime, no fucking problem. All right, Rhoades is he's a piece of shit. All right, he attacked scared, defenseless women. That's fucking, and he's not even doing it for any kind of higher cause. He's not fucking bombing fucking Tokyo, firebombing Japan, and all the women and children are burning up, or fucking burning down Dresden with fucking fire bombs and shit. All the little German children fucking and women burning up. He's not even doing that. He's doing this for his own sexual gratification and to make himself feel better. That's a fucking scumbag. If a man, to you women out there, if a man ever tries to abduct you and you don't know what to fucking do, shit yourself. Or piss yourself.
Or vomit on yourself.
Yeah.
I know
animals do that in the wild.
They do.
To save themselves. Because the animal says, I'm not going to eat that. That's nasty.
We had a cop come to our school when I was in junior high. And he gave a whole lecture to the junior high girls on rape prevention, which is crazy to think about. And that was one of the things he said.
Shit yourself.
Yeah, make yourself disgusting.
God, get out of my car. Get out of my truck.
Yeah. He's like, I know it's gross. And it's like, but he's like, seriously. And he told us like all these fucking horror stories about like all this. He was trying to scare us into fucking...
That's another tactic. If you ever got to fight a shit ton of dudes, reach in your fucking pants and shit in your fucking hand and wipe it all over yourself and jump right in the middle of them. They will run. They will scatter like fucking roaches. Yeah. Even the cops won't really want to arrest you.
You will need a bleach bath after. But at least you'll be still alive.
It's biological warfare. That shit's been running through the animal kingdom since the dawn of time. Animals that soil themselves, and all of a sudden they don't want to be. Nothing wants to eat it.
Like,
stink beetles. And
shit. If that's like literally your last resort.
Well, you're trying to turn that dude off.
Yeah.
He's like, ugh, you're nasty, bitch. Get out of here.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's just funny when I was in, and that was back in the fucking 80s. Mm-hmm. We had a cop come and like,
oh, that's wise.
Do like a rape prevention thing, and he's like, if all else fails, he actually gave us like a bunch of, he's like, whatever you got, if it's like a pencil or a key or anything, stick in their eyeball, stick in their ear, anything like that. But he's like, if you can't do that, barf on yourself, shit on yourself. Dude, he said that.
Yeah.
He's like, make yourself disgusting.
Yeah.
Like anything, just to
throw
get
you
them
out of the car.
Yeah, just to get them from doing that, which is funny. That was back in the 80s that he said that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but I do. I still remember what his name was. It was Hop.
Yeah.
Just like on Stranger Things. Yeah. That was his name. Because that's his last name.
See,
was
y'all
Hopper,
can learn
just
good
like
shit here
Things.
on 13 o'clock. We had, between me and Jen, man, we got a fucking gold mine of fucking... Desolate one says, Tom, you do some self-defense stuff. There's so much shit out there, man. You don't just dedicate some time and fucking... You need strategic thinking and strategic empathy. You got to put yourself in the fucking feet of the attacker. If you're a woman and a dude's fucking taking you, he's taking you for sexual purposes, he thinks you're sexy, he's going to run through that. You got to ruin that for him, shit all over yourself. Now all of a sudden you're nasty. He's like, oh, I don't want to fuck this chick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
Get out of the car. You know.
Ben says, Long Legs is great. Reminded me of that true crime occult thriller, The Ultimate Evil. Yeah, I really liked Long Legs too.
The key is...
I understand that some people might not be into it, but I was feeling that vibe.
The key to protect yourself, if you're a woman, from any kind of abduction is to never allow yourself to be removed from the fucking scene. Don't go anywhere. You make him kill you right there. Now, sometimes that's hard because might be 2 or 3 dudes jump out of a van and grab you, throw you in.
Yeah, you don't have much choice.
There's not much choice there.
That happened to a relative of mine.
Yeah, that's when you just shit all over yourself.
She was just on a bike.
Yeah.
She was riding a bike, and it was daytime.
Yeah.
In Daytona.
And they just had her wait.
I think
they
she
let
was
her go?
16 or 17.
They let her go?
They raped her. They gang raped her.
And then they let her go.
And let her go, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just she was riding a bike, and they just pulled up beside her in a van and just pulled her in.
Yeah.
Like that. And then dumped her out later.
Did they tell her they were going to kill her? Did they tell her they were going to let her
I
go?
don't know, actually. It was a long time ago. That was back in the 70s, I think. 70s or earlier.
Yeah. It's harder to do that shit now here in the U.S., man. Too many cameras, too many cell phones.
Yeah.
And it's kind of out of fashion. The dudes that do that, there's not enough fucking leaded gasoline like there was back in the day.
Which is like, it's funny that you bring that up because, like I said, I'm really into that subreddit, Boomers Being Fools. Yeah. And one of the big things on there, like every time some boomer does something stupid, they're just always just kind of, they call them lead heads.
Leadheads, yeah.
They're like, whoop, there's that leaded gasoline again. And I'm like, I think there might be something to that.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we might have got a little bit of it, because I'm Gen X, and you're Gen X.
Yeah.
But,
I remember burning leaded gasoline in my fucking
But
cars.
I think when leaded gasoline was phased out by early 70s, right? Early mid-70s?
No.
I thought.
No, late 80s.
Oh, I thought it was banned in, like, mid-70s.
No, late 80s. I remembered it fucking still being able to buy it in the late 80s.
I don't remember. I don't think you could still buy leaded gasoline in the 80s here.
You could in Detroit.
Yeah, maybe different states were different. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing leaded gasoline unless I was like a little kid.
Used to run it in my Mercury
70s.
Montego.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe it did. I don't really remember.
That was the recommended fuel. Set it right there on the fucking
Here, put this poison
dash.
shit in
Leaded
your
fuel.
vehicle. It'll be fine.
Leaded fuel only. It would say that on it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It won't cause you to be like a completely fucking crazy person.
It's not the shit that you're burning. It's all the fucking lead particles blowing around the city. You're breathing them. You're around them all the time.
Yeah, that fucks your...
It's everybody else's lead.
Your fucking brain up.
Yeah.
Yep, it's nice. All coming home.
Yeah, you know what's funny? They hushed all that up, didn't they? Not a single lawsuit. Not a single lawsuit.
Not that I know of.
No.
But maybe there's one. I don't know.
No. Oh, they fooled the boomers.
They'll fall for anything. Though.
Yeah. But if they saw it on television, a boomer believes it.
And the Phantom said kids eating paint chips. That too.
Yeah.
Because it was lead and paint back then too. And like if kids like would eat the paint chips off the wall, yeah. Lead's not good for your brain, folks. And it doesn't manifest until you're much older. Which, like I said, we're kind of seeing that play out.
Phantom says trimming her bush is a good way of getting caught. No, what he's doing is he's fetishizing her. Fetish
Yeah.
girls from that time had short hair and were shaved. And he's picking up lot lizards and girls that are just young and don't know anything. And it was just, you know, a lot of the early 90s, if you go back and look at it, it looks a lot like the early 80s. Some of those people, you know, their fashion sense was a little bit behind. Rhoades actually had pretty good taste in fashion from what I saw of his photographs. But he'd been involved in he'd been going to the fetish scene. And he wanted his victims to look like a girl from the fetish clubs. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, he had like outfits. The fucked
Yeah.
up thing is that the black dress that Regina Walters, which we'll get into in a bit, was wearing in those very famous photos.
Yeah.
After he killed her, because that was the dress he killed her in. Well,
Yeah.
she was naked when he killed her.
Yeah.
Because when they found her, she didn't have
She was
any clothes.
nude, yeah.
But he took that clothes back. So he had, in his apartment, there's like all these clothes. So he would like dress them the way he wanted them to
Yeah.
look. And the shoes that she had on were too big for her. Did you
Yeah.
notice?
He just grabbed those probably just off
Yeah.
the rack. He didn't know where to shoot. He just had her tied
He
up in the
just
truck and
wanted
went and bought that shit.
people to look up. He just wanted them to look a particular way for his.
He
little
wanted them,
fantasies or
he
whatever.
actually wanted them to look pretty sophisticated. She looked like something off of that damn Ladytron or something, fucking some from Cold Wave Van or something. He looked good. They
Right
looked
before
good.
he murdered her.
He had good taste, but he was an asshole, man.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, he was a fucking asshole. He just wanted his girls to, I don't want to call them his girls because then it makes it seem like he actually possessed me, didn't he? Robbed him. He wanted his victims to look high-end out of like a high-end fashion from a fetish club or a goth club, kind of. Because if you look at the way Regina's dressed, man, they were in 95, 96 up in Boston. There were still girls that were dressed like that in the clubs, goth clubs.
Another thing that the pseudonymous Shauna said, not only that that she was scared of him when she saw him and that she didn't think that the officers could protect her, but she also said, and this is a quote, "I don't see any good in filing charges. It's just going to be my word against his. If there was any evidence I would file charges and sue him." So she didn't think anyone would believe her.
Huh.
Which, like I said, is...
Well, she was kind of a lot lizard.
I mean, that's what I mean. And that's pretty common. I
Yeah.
understand. I mean, there are so many rapes and stuff, like, even now, like, not as much as back then, but, like, that are not reported for this very reason.
Yeah.
And especially when it's somebody that's, like you said, like a sex worker or a lot lizard or something
Yeah.
like that. Like, if they get raped, it's like, who the fuck's gonna believe me? Like, so I feel like they don't even bother.
Low self-esteem.
Like, they don't even
They
bother.
probably would have believed her.
Well, in this case, they might have, but...
Yeah.
But only in hindsight, because they didn't really know the extent of this dude's shit until, like,
Right.
later on.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have got much.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. So, you know, while you can say... I mean, I'm a big advocate of you should always report shit because you don't know if he's going to do it to somebody else. Like, you might be saving somebody else's life down the line. So you should always, even if it's difficult, you should always report it. But I understand that that's kind of a privileged thing to say. Like, not everybody is in that situation.
Probably what would have happened is that he would have done a couple, 18 months or something, maybe 2 years, and he'd been back out.
And then he went back out.
And he'd had more victims. It just would have been a different set of victims.
Right. Which is sad. It's just sad that... it's better than it used to be, but I do kind of feel like... And they kind of brought this up a little bit, I think on the FBI Files show, where one of the law enforcement officers was saying that, you know, I kind of feel like there was, you know, an idea that law enforcement officers didn't really care about sex workers or, you know, drug addicts or runaways or anything like that. Like, if anything bad happened to them, like, they wouldn't investigate it as stringently or anything like that. And the thing about it is that individually, yeah, I'm sure some of them did care, but I think I think systematically, I think they probably didn't care as much.
Well, by sheer numbers, there were so many of them.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So
if they could pin them on somebody, they would. But
I'm not saying they didn't investigate it, because they did.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they would have poured as much resources into it if it was like some, 14-year-old girl from like a wealthy, white family that was abducted from their front yard or whatever in some
Well, that
fancy
kind of
neighborhood.
happened. Regina was kind of like that, though.
Yeah, but she was hitchhiking.
Yeah, but there was nothing really
But
wrong
she
with
wasn't
her.
a sex worker. She
No.
wasn't a lot lizard. She wasn't anything
And she was
like
hiking
that.
with her boyfriend.
Yeah. So...
They said there was nothing unusual about her. She was just a little bit rebellious. She just wanted to get out of the house.
But I do kind of... Like I said, it's a lot better than it used to be because there's a lot more... I guess there's a lot more information about it nowadays, but I do kind of feel like, particularly back in the 60s and 70s, when a lot of these serial killers were operating, I kind of feel like they didn't really... Like I said, there was just so much of it. There was just, sex workers and runaways and stuff, they got murdered all the time, and it was just kind of like, it wasn't so much that they didn't care, it's just that they
couldn't do much about it.
They couldn't do much about it.
Yeah, another thing is that in the 70s, the United States, the crime rate was a lot higher. The violence was a lot higher than it is now.
Much higher.
People think that it was like the good old days. Man, it's getting it's going down to hell in a handbasket. No, it's
holy crap.
It's calmed down a lot since the 70s.
A lot. If you like look at a chart of like the fucking violent crimes and stuff like that. 70s. Well, I think the peak was 80s, like 87, 88, somewhere around there, and then it took a drastic.
86, 87. That was the crack epidemic. So it was a lot of drug gang warfare. That's not really quite the same thing.
That's true.
70s was a lot of serial killer type shit, sex offenses, and just murders in general. Guys thought you could kill people and get away with it. I guess they kind of could.
Yeah. Most of the shit, because
I think leaded gasoline had a lot to do with it. Drugs.
Yeah.
And fucking.
Honestly, like a lot of the crimes, because I read about a lot of true crime. I feel like prior to the 1990s, you saw a lot of crimes where, like I said, where it was just some random woman and she got, picked up, like some dude jumped out of a bush and like raped and murdered or broke into her house or whatever. You don't see that as much anymore. I kind of feel like most of the unsolved crimes that I write about nowadays are usually just kind of like a fight. It's like a bunch of dudes and it's just like they got in an altercation and somebody ended up getting stabbed or shot or whatever, and then everybody ran off, so it was unsolved. It's more shit like that.
Yeah, well, it's because sex offenses, like you're talking about, people breaking into houses and raping women, that's usually a young man's crime. The young generations right now would be Gen Z, okay? They're kind of living at home in the mom's basement. A lot of them are, they're watching porn, playing video games. They're on the internet. They're not as isolated. They're complaining about mental health and shit, but I think their mental health is a lot better than what it was.
I think so, too.
Of the young people of the 70s.
Well, people are a lot more cognizant
yeah, they know what's going on more.
Of it now.
Yeah, there was a lot of fucking ignorance in the pre-internet era. We liked it. We were there for it. But you were very low information because your only information was coming out of television and maybe newspapers, and it was all controlled, basically, kind of propaganda. You didn't really know what the fuck was going on. You were just being told. And it was only a fraction of the information that you have now. Now you have an accurate idea of how things actually go. And people seem to be busy more than they were more bored back then. And you had to fucking do everything face to face. You had to go out, which there's good things about that, but it also meant that you had a bunch of fucking dumbasses and running around looking for shit to do, getting in trouble. Raping and killing people.
Right.
It's
like now people are perfectly happy. It's just like, man, I got like fucking all these TV shows to watch. I got like all this porn I could watch. I got like all this erotica I could
same
read.
Dude that was running around raping women and shit today, he's
better.
watching porn.
Yeah, and he's not...
He doesn't really care about it. He's not fascinated with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have that back then, so so it was almost kind of like taboo. So it was like a big thing.
Sex was a big deal.
And people got like really fixated on it. I feel like people aren't fixated on it like they used to be, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing in a lot of ways that porn has become kind of normalized.
You're gonna have maniacs. It's just
always.
Not as many.
Always.
There were more of them back then. And those dudes were fucking idiots, basically. They were idiots. And fucking sexual idiots, too. They didn't fucking know anything. Mean.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like, back in the day, if you had some weird fetish or some weird sexual proclivity or something like that, you thought, again, like you thought you were all alone and you were a freak and you were a weirdo. Oh, I must be a monster, blah, blah, blah. And it would kind of warp But I feel like that doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah. Dudes will just drive around, you know what I mean, and look at some girl with the shorty shorts. Oh, man, did you see that? Yeah, let's go get her. Yeah, and go down and rape and kill the girl.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Yeah,
all in a day's work.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. They had dudes that were doing that.
I know.
Yeah. Nowadays, that dude's looking at Instagram. Boy, look at that ass.
Yeah.
All right. And then he sees that same girl going down there and goes, that's not that good. Not that good. Not as good as...
She looked better in the pictures.
He's like, now that chick on Instagram is hotter than that. You know
like I
what mean?
said, I would argue that that's way better.
So it's a better situation.
Because at least they're not bothering people in real life.
Yeah, because they were killing people and then putting their own freedom at risk just for a nut. That's how ridiculous it is. I'm like, well, dude, you're doing it. You killed that woman just because you wanted to come? What kind of shit is that?
I'm like,
know?
you've got to
get caught.
right?
You're going to get caught. You're going to spend the rest of your life up in prison with nothing but dudes. What the fuck you thinking?
You've got a hand and a magazine,
yeah, go fucking
right?
check out. Go look at the pictures. Go look at the pictures. You know,
Holy crap.
Probably better than
like a normal fucking.
Yeah,
person.
now it would probably be better than the real experience of forcing it on that woman. You know, chances are those dudes weren't satisfied by that shit.
Of course not. That's what
they were like,
saying.
I wasn't that good.
Jeff Yard said, "This is clearly a solid case of how porn and fetish fuel is saving lives, and I'm actually serious." Oh yeah,
I think so.
I'm totally serious about that.
Yeah.
I'm really glad
they're not as pent up as they were.
That porn has become normalized. Like, it's not really a big... I'm not talking about, like, violent fucking shit or snuff or anything. I'm not talking about anything like that. But I'm just talking about, like, porn is just ubiquitous, and it's not that big a deal. I think the fact that people aren't fixating on it in an unhealthy way anymore is good.
Yeah, I've heard people say, well, this porn's making people more sexually aggressive, more violent, more demanding on women. No, it's the opposite.
No, I don't think that's the case.
No. Dudes in earlier eras, I think, were fucking more sexually aggressive. More.
Yeah, well, clearly.
Yeah. Porn wasn't that good, and you didn't have access to it either. So you needed a real woman. So you would aggressively go out there and try to pick up women. Yeah.
And if you were into like some weird fetish and you couldn't find a real person that would do that
was going to be trouble.
Then you were going to force it on somebody.
Yeah, that was going to be trouble. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like nowadays you don't really have to do that.
Right, yeah.
Like you can either find that very specific porn or you can go online and find a person who is into the same shit as you.
Yeah, you can go to special night at the fucking fetish club where that shit's going to be happening.
Right. And it's fine and everyone's fine with it. So it's just kind of like I think that's like way better. Like I said, I think repression is usually a trigger for this kind of stuff. Yeah. Generally. So I think like the more open stuff is, like I said, to a point. I'm not saying everything should be on the table. Obviously it shouldn't, but
another big factor is the balance of the sexes. In other words, there are some countries where they've aborted so many of the females' babies that there's an overabundance of men and fucking not enough women. Those dudes are fucking do bad shit too. India's in a big jam like that. Fucking rape capital of the world. There's no women. You know? And it's a third world country.
Well, that's what misogyny
They see a woman, they
gets
just fucking
you.
rape them.
That's what misogyny gets you because it's like, oh, well, nobody wants girls.
Yeah, they kill them.
And so it's like they abort the girls, and now you have all this surplus of men who will never get women.
They will never get women. They're extra men. There's a vast surplus of them, and they will never get married. There's not enough women. So now it's fucking dangerous. What are you going to do with those dudes? They're just going to die without reproducing? Do you think they're going to go quietly? Fuck no. No. Very dangerous.
I mean, they should, but yeah.
That's not what's going to happen, though.
Well, I know.
And they're in a developing country. You know, where that has a lot of hypergamy, where the women are all chasing the guys at the very top. So you have fucking dudes, and a lot of them, and some of this involves Islam, so they can have 3 wives. You know, so the best dudes got 3, and then probably some mistresses. So they're hogging all the women, and the women were already scarce.
Yeah, because Ben says in India they can get an arranged marriage and just buy a wife for the price of a good.
Yeah, but that's only rich people.
I don't know how much the wives are going for over there.
That's
a weird system.
The men outnumber the women a lot. So that means there's going to be leftover men, lots of them.
Men seconds, men are regulars. But
leftover men.
But yeah, that was an MST reference. If you didn't know. But yeah, I talked to a dude from India for a while, and he was like, his mind was blown that marriages weren't arranged and that you could just like live with a person before you got married. And
then he eventually started hitting on you.
Well, yeah, then I blocked him, but yeah. But I just thought it was like so funny that concepts that are just like not, nobody even thinks about them over here, but over there it's like kind of a big deal. I'm like, holy crap. I didn't realize it was like that different, you know what I mean? You know. CP said you're the first people I told outside the bar about my belly button fetish. That's like I said, that's not, I don't know, like you might be the only person that's told me specifically that, but it's just like that's not that weird. Yeah, Ben said there is an imbalance because families tend to get rid of their female children because they don't want to pay a dowry. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just, like I said, that's what happens when you get rid of all the girls like that. Doesn't work out. Okay, so where was I? I'm probably it's about halfway. I guess it's a little more than halfway. All right, so they have these two cases. These kidnapping cases. Because remember, they don't know this motherfucker's murdered. They suspect that he's probably murdered people just because they know his type. You know what I mean? They're like, this motherfucker, he seems serial killer-y to me. So they have the one kidnapping case, and then they have the one in Houston. So they're like, okay, we need to keep this dude in custody. We need to like figure out more about this dude. So the main thing, they wanted to get the FBI involved because there were two different states involved at this point. So they call the FBI office in Phoenix. And the case got assigned to a dude named Special Agent Bob Lee. So he goes through the accounts of the two kidnapped victims and looked through the stuff that was in the briefcase that they found in the truck and said, yeah, this dude, whether he's a serial rapist or a serial killer or not, he's clearly been doing this for a very long time, because this is very organized. We don't usually see this with somebody that's just new at this, you know what I mean? Like, he's from the FBI, knows what he's doing. So he said, we need to search this motherfucker's apartment sooner rather than later. Because he said, this dude seems like a classic sexual sadist, and those types of people usually keep trophies from their victims. Clothing, journals, IDs, things like that. So it's like, so if we go in the apartment, we're probably going to find all kind of stuff in there. So we need to get around to that. So he figures out that the apartment, Rhoades lives there by himself, and he rented it. Now, interestingly, after Rhoades got arrested, his landlady got kind of curious, and she owns the building, right? So she's like, I'm going in there. I'm going to see what's going on, which, like I said, that's kind of her legal right? So she uses her keys, and she goes into the apartment. And she tells the cops that she's like, I went in that apartment, and she's like, there's all kind of crap in there. There's like whips and chains, there's handcuffs, there's bondage magazines, there's all kind of women's clothing and jewelry in there. She's like, and there's all kind of these white towels, and one of them has like a whole bunch of blood on it. So she also said, I don't even know if they said this on the FBI file show or not, but the landlady also said, she said, yeah, like not long after he got arrested, some woman called here and said that she was his wife and told me that he had called her from jail and said to clean out the apartment. Suspicious. So yeah, he's like, clear everything out of there. He told his wife. His wife didn't do it because she's like,
right.
Fuck you, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would have said. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So yeah. So Lee is just kind of like, okay, well, this motherfucker's obviously got some shit in here that he doesn't want us to find. So to get a warrant, though, he actually had to go to the kind of FBI headquarters, which is in Quantico, in Virginia. And he went to a judge there, and he got a behavioral expert, and he's just like, look, this is what we think that he's probably a serial killer, and we need to get in that apartment. So he got granted a search warrant. So only 5 days, I believe, I think it was only 5 days, after the whole truck incident where they found him with the woman in the truck, they went into his apartment and searched it. So they took out, they found a bunch of like bondage shit, women's clothing, makeup. There was a whole bunch of white towels in there, like I said, one of which had a whole bunch of blood on it. And this I mean, the white towels were generic enough that it probably wouldn't have been evidence otherwise. But it was significant because the 2 kidnapping victims that they knew about had said that he had put a white towel underneath them before he started doing whatever he was going to do to them. Like a specific like white towel. So they were like, okay, well, he's got a bunch of white towels in here, and one of them has a shit ton of blood on it. Another thing that they found in the apartment was a whole bunch of photographs. Now, a bunch of these pictures showed a young girl with short hair, and she had the pictures, like some of them were naked, some of them were partially undressed. She was always kind of like, some of them she was restrained, things like that. And Lee realized that she must have been with him for at least a week because there were bruises on her body that changed color, like over the course of the photos. And also he had shaved her pubic hair and it had started growing back. You know what I mean? So it's like, so he knew that it was like at least a week.
Yeah,
that she had been in.
I wonder how he got these photos developed.
Like I said, maybe they were Polaroids. I don't know.
They don't look like it.
But the thing about the Regina Walters photos, which are the most famous ones, they said that these were on the same roll as the one of like the woman that later, which like I said I'll get into later, but where she was still alive. So to me, that implies that that's not Polaroid. That's like a regular roll of film, like back in the day.
Yeah, and the photos I've seen from that roll, because I've seen that girl you're talking about, and I've seen the Regina photos. If you didn't know the context, they would just look pretty normal. You know what I mean?
Right.
She wasn't nude. She doesn't look obviously like she's been hurt.
Well, in those pictures, because she's clothed.
Yeah.
But there were other pictures of her where she was not.
Did that come from that same roll?
I don't know, actually.
Okay. Because, see, if I was him, I'd be like, man, I'd be afraid to get these developed. Because people
unless he had a friend that was into the same shit, or unless he had his own
way of developing.
Because some people developed his own. I mean, it was hard.
It's not that hard, but you.
But yeah, you had to have a dark room.
Yeah.
But I know how to do it. I mean, I know how to do it.
I've done it too. Yeah, you got to get the negatives. You got to get the negatives out of there in a dark room. Then you use it through a little projector.
You don't even necessarily need to. They make a little thing, because I had this when I was in school, like a little bag, like a little black bag, and you just stick your hands in it.
Okay. Yeah.
And like take this stuff out like inside the bag.
Okay.
It's kind of hard because you can't really see what you're doing, but yeah, if you don't have like a dark room, you can do that to like transfer it to another thing so it doesn't overexpose.
Yeah, maybe he could develop his own photos.
Maybe so. I always kind of wonder about that.
Right.
Like I said, I kind of feel like the serial killers always use Polaroids because obviously you didn't have to take those anywhere.
Yeah.
But
it's not that hard to develop them all. You just got to know where to get the stuff and have the time and the place to do it. Maybe he was developing his own.
Yeah, maybe.
You need a fucking light and a little projector to project it down out of the once the negative's made.
And you need all the
photographic
chemicals.
paper, and you can blow it up or whatever and cut it with a fucking paper cutter.
Yeah, you need all the shit. It's not cheap, but you know, it's not that hard to do.
Yeah, and he had money.
I learned to do it in school.
Yeah, I was on the yearbook.
I just took a class. I took a class that was lithograph printing and photograph. I even built a pinhole camera.
Yeah. And
developed my own pictures from that a long time ago. I built a pinhole camera out of cardboard.
Yeah.
Cardboard and a lens. And took some shitty photographs with it. Then
I would have been spooked as the serial killer to have photographs of my victims and then send them to have them developed.
They always seem to keep them though, and because I guess it's the same reason they keep clothing and jewelry and stuff like that, because they want to like look back and be like, oh, remember the time that I murdered that woman? Like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like.
But let's say you're working in the fucking photo development place. You're a dude that works there. You'd see those photos going by. You know what I mean? It doesn't obviously show any murders.
He probably developed them.
But you'd be like, fucking, what the fuck's going on with this dude? You know what I mean? You might call the cops. I don't know.
I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah.
Because if somebody just took him to the fucking 1 hour photomat or something like that back in the day when you had to do that. Like, now, the thing about
these women restrained and bruised.
After they got a machine, most of the time they would just put your shit in there and they wouldn't really look at it. Like sometimes they'd kind of flip through there and just like throw them in the envelope.
Maybe they weren't seeing it.
They didn't really look at them that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know.
I always thought that fucking dudes were fucking looking through them all and fucking if there were any nudes, they'd make a fucking
Oh, now
copy of it.
I know that there was some dudes that
There
did
was
that.
dudes that were probably doing that. Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought of that movie from the
chicks taking
80s.
nude
Ooh, it's
selfies.
more the redhead with the tattoo.
Yeah, chicks taking nude selfies. Okay, yeah.
Because they worked in a
making 2
What
copies of
fucking
those.
movie was that?
Yeah.
I think it was Summer School. That came out in
Yeah.
the 80s. But I think that's what because they worked in a photomat and they were always looking for like nude pictures. Which is like funny. Well, I don't understand like why if you're gonna take porno photos, like get a fucking Polaroid, dude. They weren't that expensive. Jeez.
They didn't take good quality photos.
No, but if all you wanted was to like look at it and jerk off later on, because I'm assuming that's all they were gonna do. Fandom says Cy Parrish is the best photo tech from 1 Hour Photo. In case you guys didn't, which we reviewed a little while back. Yeah, Ben said you just set up a darkroom and develop them. It isn't rocket science. Very popular hobby. That's what I'm kind of thinking. It's not really that complicated. And you need equipment, but you don't need that much stuff. It's not really that big of a deal. I mean, if you're really into it, and he seemed like he was really into it, he had all the fucking dildos, and as far as I read this somewhere, but he was the type of dude that had a guy that would like professionally clean all your sex toys.
Oh, really? He had
like you could just go, I don't know if he was putting them in an autoclave. I don't know what the fuck. Because honestly, you can
bathing them in fucking alcohol.
Right. Like, I mean, you can clean sex toys with like some fucking antiseptic wipes or whatever, but it's just kind of like, so he's like, here's all my nipple clamps and dildos and
he's being all
pussy pumps
about
and whatever the fuck. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to have all these professionally cleaned because I'm doing things the right way.
Right, doing it the right way. I don't want to spread disease. Don't want to spread disease among
While
these
he's
victims
murdering
killed.
people.
Yeah.
Which is, that's so ironic. I don't understand. But yeah. So they found these pictures, and Lee was kind of bothered by these. And at first, as I mentioned before, there was kind of a thing. It's like, well, you couldn't tell from the photos if the girl in the pictures was a consenting person or not. So it's like, so we can't really release these to the public because that's an invasion of privacy. But he's like, I'm kind of bothered by these anyway, and he wasn't entirely sure who she was. You know what I mean? So at this point, about almost a year goes by after they searched the apartment. And then it so happened that Lee heard another FBI agent, his name was Mark Young, talking about a murder, like an unsolved murder, that had taken place in rural Illinois. Now, this victim had been found on September 29th, 1990, in a barn loft. And she was only found because the barn was kind of abandoned. He didn't use it anymore. And he was actually just going to burn it down. I've heard some accounts said that he was going to let the fire department use it to burn it down or something like for training or something like that. But he was going to burn it down because he didn't use it. So whatever the case was, he was going in there just to make sure there was nothing in there, you know what I mean, that he needed, that didn't, that didn't need to be burned. So when he goes in there to look around, he finds, to his utter dismay, human skeletal remains. Now later on, this skeleton was confirmed to be the body of a 14-year-old girl named Regina Walters, who was originally from Pasadena, Texas. Now, she had last been seen in February of 1990 near Houston with her boyfriend, whose name was Ricky Lee Jones. Now, Regina, they thought had likely been killed in March of 1990, so several months before she was found. Now, Regina...
no, a year.
Yeah, no, it was, they found her in late September, and they thought she was killed in February or March. So it wasn't a whole year.
Okay, because that one program said they thought it was...
Well, another program said 6 months, but it was between 6 months and a year.
Because she was a skeleton.
Yeah.
They showed.
Like,
and
I've
evidently
seen...
they found her under a pile of hay. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they showed in the program.
Most of the accounts that I read said that she was in the loft.
Yeah. And they showed it on the ground floor, didn't they?
In the reenactment, yeah, it was on the
Yeah.
ground floor. Because I was kind of bothered by that. I'm like, well, she was in the loft, I thought.
Yeah.
Which the loft is not on the floor.
She'd been garroted with a fucking
Baling wire.
and
It was baling wire, like, tied to a like a
pole
stick.
and he spun it 16 times.
16 times.
So
Almost
it
took her head off.
Nearly decapitated her. I imagine she was probably dead by the time it got that small
I hope
around
so.
her neck.
Jesus Christ.
I think he just kept spinning it after she was dead.
Yeah.
But, man, fucking brutal. Cute girl, too. What a waste.
I mean, 14.
Yeah.
She was 14. So, what had happened with her, her parents were divorced, and she lived with her dad, but at the time that she disappeared, she was actually staying with her mom in Pasadena. And she was kind of like, I don't want to say she was a habitual runaway, but they said it was pretty common for her to kind of go and stay at friends' houses for a few days or something like that. But she was pretty good about letting her parents know where she was. They said she would always come back on her own.
Yeah. She was only 5 feet tall, 90 pounds. When you see photographs of her in her final minutes, she doesn't look 14. If you were to tell me she was 18 or 19, I'd believe it, actually. But the way he had her dressed probably had something to do with it, too. But, yeah, man, what a waste.
Yeah, I mean, she was just a little girl.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that the photo that they had of her, that was the last one, like her school photo, like they weren't even sure that it was her when they saw the pictures that they found in Rhoades' apartment.
Yeah, she looks very
because
different.
he cut off all her hair and like put her in different clothes and stuff like that, and she looked a lot older.
Yeah, I gave her a little bob kind of haircut, black dress, heels, looked like one of the members of Ladytron. Yeah. Yeah, and she looked a lot older in that photo.
I mean, in the school photo, she looked like
Yeah,
a
so-
14-year-old.
Yeah.
She had very long, like,
Yeah.
curly hair.
Right.
But so here's the thing. So she was, she would run away a lot, but she would always kind of come. She was just a little. They said there wasn't anything weird about her. She wasn't a bad kid or anything like that. She was just a little bit rebellious, and so she'd run away sometimes, stay with friends, and then she would always come back though. But this one particular time, she left, and she didn't come back, and she didn't call, and her mom got a really, really bad feeling, and like she reported it to the police, I think only a day or two later, and started putting posters up and things like that. Now,
they saw those posters and ran.
Yeah, the thing about it, okay.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, the cops in Illinois, which is where the body was eventually found, they thought that her boyfriend, Ricky Lee Jones, had killed her because he was also missing. Now, I should note that her boyfriend was 18 and she was only 14. So they thought maybe he had done something to her and like was afraid to come back. But the thing about it was like the dude from the FBI, he said that he got into all these arguments with like the law enforcement in Illinois because they were like, why can't you find the boyfriend? He's the one that did it. He's missing too, blah,
like,
blah.
no.
And he's like, no. He's like, the way that she was found, he's like, this is not an 18-year-old. He's like, this is not a crime of passion type of situation. He's like, this was very calculated. This is very controlled. He's like, this is someone who is older, someone who has probably done this before, someone who is a traveler. That was another thing that he said. He's like, the boyfriend did not do this. Yeah, and he's like, so he had a lot of fights with like the Illinois cops because they thought the boyfriend did it.
Yeah, he said when an 18-year-old boyfriend kills a girlfriend, it's during an argument. And
sure.
And it's something that, it's a scene where it's like in a heat of passion type of deal. It says this was a cold-blooded execution with sexual fucking overtones, and with the way she was killed and everything and totally nude. He says the boyfriend doesn't do that.
Yeah.
That's not how this is somebody else.
Like
he knew the boyfriend was dead. He says that boyfriend's dead.
He said even before they find out, spoiler alert, that he was, he's like, I think the boyfriend is probably dead too.
It was obvious she was killed over sex.
Yeah.
And the boyfriend has access to sex. He doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, and like they did look into the boyfriend's background, and he had some kind of like, little skirmishes with the law, stealing cars, that kind of crap. But he wasn't violent. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't anything like that. You know, he had kind of a troubled background, but he was like an okay kid.
Once he and her saw the "Where's My Daughter" posters, they got spooked, and they were going to run off to Mexico.
Yeah.
He was part Mexican and had relatives in Mexico.
Yeah, he had relatives in Matamoros, I think.
Yeah.
Matamoros,
Right.
I think they said.
So they were going to hitchhike down there. They never made it. They got into the truck roads.
Yeah, so that's what ended up happening. And I think it was another thing, too, where I think that he was infatuated with Regina and he didn't realize that she was only 14. And so when he found out that she was only 14, he's like, oh shit, like that might be another issue. So they decided they were going to run away together. And because he had relatives in Mexico, that's where they were going to go, and they were going to hitchhike there. Unfortunately, the person who picked them up hitchhiking was Robert Ben Rhoades. Now, he actually picked them up on February 5th, 1990, which was the same day that Shauna Holtz escaped from him. That was the same day. So it could be that he was pissed that she had gotten away and just started driving and was like, I'm just going to pick up the first people I see or whatever. I mean, that seems that that's probably what happened. Also, there was another thing too. After he picked them up and he actually, he admitted later that he actually killed Ricky Lee Jones immediately because, like I said, he doesn't really care about the dudes. He just wants the women so he can keep them captive for a while. But what he did too was that a month after they disappeared, Rhoades started calling Regina's dad, anonymously, obviously. He called him at work, and he also called him at his unlisted home number. And like for a long time, they couldn't figure out how he got his home phone number because it was unlisted. And this caller told Regina's dad that I know where Regina is. She's in a barn loft. I made some changes. I cut her hair off. And her dad asked, is she alive or dead? And then the dude hung up. Now, the calls came in a couple of times. They actually were able to trace them later. One of them was traced to Oklahoma City, and one was traced to Ennis, Texas, the next day.
Yeah, he had all of her little notebooks out of her backpack.
Well, I'm going to get into that
all
in
right.
a minute, yeah.
Had everybody's phone numbers. He was calling.
So the thing about it, Mark Young, the FBI agent, he hears about this case, and he thought that the photos of Regina looked like the pictures that he had found at Rhoades' apartment. But he wasn't sure because she looked a lot different. Like I said, in the original pictures, she has very long curly hair. She looks like a 14-year-old. It's a school photo. And then in the ones before she was killed, her hair's all cut off. She's in like quote-unquote sophisticated clothing. She looks a lot different. So he wasn't entirely sure if it was her. But he did take some of the photos and like cover up some of the stuff. I don't know if he showed the dad like, nude ones or anything like that. But he showed some of the dad some of the pictures and said, "Is this your daughter?" And the dad said that it was. So yeah. And a lot of those, like I said, the ones of her in the black dress and stuff, they were taken in the barn where her skeleton was later found. Now, in Rhoades' apartment, they also found a notebook that had belonged to Regina. And in that notebook, there was a page that had all of her phone numbers, like her family phone numbers. And one of those phone numbers was her dad's unlisted phone number. So that's obviously how Rhoades had gotten it. And so the thing about it was they knew where the calls had come from, like when he called the dad. So when they traced them, they cross-referenced that with Rhoades' trucking logs, and they found that the first call had been made from a truck stop in Oklahoma City. That was on March 16th. And they also had receipts, and that same day, Rhoades had put gas in his truck at that same exact truck stop at that same time. And then the next day, the phone call had come from Ennis, Texas, and he had also been at that truck stop. Like, his log showed that as well. In this notebook where the phone numbers were, somebody had written, like, on the back page, I think it was, Ricky is a dead man. And they had drawn this, like a knife with, like, blood dripping on it and, like, a little gun or some shit like that. And there was also, like, a lot of weird stuff. And they had the wife in there, Deborah, and she came and identified that as Rhoades' handwriting. So he had written that in Regina's notebook. So that's how they probably knew that he had killed Ricky as well, but they didn't find him.
I wonder if he wrote that while she was alive.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or after she had died. Some weird shit. He wrote that in there. He must have picked them both up and used some kind of ruse.
Like I said, you weren't here, but he picked them up the same day that other girl escaped.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Like, after she escaped.
Damn. In his mind, what luck.
I said he was probably mad because one got away. He's like, oh, I'm just going to pick up the first one I see.
Right.
Because he was upset.
He must have killed the kid, the guy, Ricky, that day. Later on that day.
Yeah, I imagine he probably did, yeah.
Because he wouldn't be hauling that dude around. He wanted that girl. He must have figured out a way to kill him in front of her. Which, that would cow her.
I mean,
get her pretty submissive.
They don't know exactly what happened, but they suspect that because he was such a sadist, that he probably would have gotten off on killing the boyfriend in front of her.
Yeah. I would think so, too.
So he probably did that.
And that would make her more compliant. She's only 14. It'd probably take the fucking wind out of her.
Yeah, I mean, she's a kid.
Yeah, and then he'd traumatize her real quick with some physical trauma, which would stun her pretty bad. So she would have been in shock. Be real compliant for a while. Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine? I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in that situation.
She'd be having an out-of-body experience.
Yeah. So, I should note that for a while, like, we watched a couple documentaries and they were like, oh, Ricky Lee Jones was never found. That is not the case. They actually found his partial remains in May of 1990. Now, here's the thing. Like, different sources, one source, actually a couple sources, said that the partial remains were found in Harleton, Texas. But some of the sources said that he was found in Mississippi.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
What do they mean by partial? I know that they found a tooth.
They found some teeth. Yeah, they didn't find the whole skeleton. As far as I know, I don't think they found the whole skeleton, but they found enough to identify him.
What called their attention to some teeth laying around?
I don't know, actually.
So you don't know the whole story?
No. Like I said, I'm not even really sure, because I've seen, like, a couple of different places where they found him. But they did find him later on. He had been shot in the head. He wasn't identified until a couple years later in 1992.
Oh, they found the whole body later on?
No.
Okay.
I said he was identified.
Well, how do they know he was shot in the head?
In 1992.
How do they know he was shot?
I guess they found part of the skull. I'm
found
not
part
really
of the skull.
sure.
Good.
But like I said, I don't know. Just
yeah.
You're like
when you're
asking,
reading through this shit for the audience.
Yeah, but if you're asking me stuff that's not in here, then I can't answer.
No, I'm trying to explain something to the audience. When you're researching, reading through this shit, there's different sources, and when they make reference to certain things, it's usually a fragment of a reference. They reference something real quick. They skim over it. They don't give you any fucking details.
Well, yeah, and I try to
bring it all together.
Well, yeah, I try to
get
find
mad
stuff.
at me. I didn't know, but you know.
Well, if I knew, I would have said.
Well, no, I
That's
asked.
what I'm saying.
I asked if you knew.
But I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I've even seen shows that said that he was found in Mississippi. I don't know if he was found in Mississippi or Texas, but they did find partial remains. So they know that he's dead. And which is what they suspected.
Yeah.
I mean, which is what the FBI suspected, and they suspected that Rhoades killed him immediately.
Yeah, Rhoades would have killed him pretty quick.
So meanwhile, as if this motherfucker wasn't evil enough, Rhoades, I mean, on October 26th, 1990, some hunters found some more skeletal remains, and this was in Millard County, Utah. Now, at the time that the remains were found, the victim was unidentified. She was just known as Jane Doe number 1, and she went under that for the next 13 years, I believe. Now, finally, in May of 2003, they were able to identify her as 24-year-old Patricia Candace Walsh. Now, Patricia Walsh and her 26-year-old husband, whose name was Douglas Ziskowski, they were from Seattle. And they had gone missing in 1989. They were actually going from Seattle to Georgia. They had just gotten married. They were on their honeymoon, and they were real religious, and they were going on like a missionary type of thing. So they were traveling across country to Georgia, and they were hitchhiking, and that's how they were moving around. But they had not been heard of since late 1989. Now, actually, Zykowski's remains were found in January of 1990 in Ozona, Texas. And he wasn't identified again until 1992. So this was another couple that was murdered by Rhoades that they didn't know about.
Yeah, until
like
later.
Prior to that.
Did they say how he was killed?
Well, he was just shot.
Back of the head, same as the other guy?
Yeah, he was just shot.
Makes you wonder if you're
I was gonna get into that actually.
If you're a 14-year-old girl, and you see your boyfriend shot in the back of the head in front of you, you probably got him out of the truck in some kind of ruse. That way he didn't have to move the body. And he shoots the boy in the back of the head in front of her. How does a 14-year-old girl process that? Does she just go into shock and shut down?
Well, probably.
Or does fucking fight or flight kick in?
It would depend on the person.
Does she even like grieve the kid, or is she so worried and wrapped up in what's happening that she immediately forgets about him?
I would imagine most people would probably dissociate because it's so outside of their regular day-to-day experience that it's like, what the fuck is even going on right now?
Yeah,
like, it would seem surreal. And like I've like read a lot of interviews and seen a lot of interviews with people that have experienced that kind of thing and like horrific crimes and stuff and survived it. And they, I mean, almost universally, they all said it didn't seem real. Like it seemed surreal at the time.
Fake,
like it wasn't really happening.
Wasn't real,
Which, like I said, that tracks because it's like it's so removed from your day-to-day experience.
Yeah, the mind tries to defend itself.
Yeah, like this isn't even happening.
So
right
it probably
now. This
shuts
is like a dream or whatever.
Probably shuts down all the emotions and shit. Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
So they go into a daze.
Yeah, so it would be like a really. I just really hope I never experience anything like that.
Yeah, weird.
But I can see how that would happen. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would probably be evolutionarily. That'd be the best thing to ensure the survival of the survivor is to shut everything down. And do
because
later.
I mean, if you got
to worry about the here and now.
Yeah, if you got to, I mean, later on,
yeah,
you can ruminate on it and like grieve about it and stuff. But in the here and now, you're gonna have to worry about saving your own ass. You know what I mean? Now, so this couple, Patricia Walsh and Douglas Zykowski, like I said, they weren't even. I don't even think Rhoades was on anyone's radar for that. But when they found them, like it was like an unsolved murder for a long time. But then, like much later, after Rhoades was arrested and jailed and everything like that, he actually did confess to their murders. I think it was 2012. Like, so it was a long time. Like after he'd been in jail. And he told the police that they were hitchhiking in January of 1990, and he picked them up, wherever he was, and he said that he killed Zykowski pretty much immediately, like he shot him, and then he dumped his body in Sutton County, Texas, which is where he was found later, and then he kept Patricia Walsh for over a week, and pretty much did the same stuff to her that he had done to the other women, raping her, sodomizing her, torturing her over a very long period of time. And then he eventually killed her and dumped her in Utah. And like I said, they didn't find that out until much later on. So getting back to the Regina Walters case, which was the thing that kind of, like I said, he was on their radar because of the kidnappings, but the Regina Walters case was a murder and they had like enough evidence for that, so they were really trying to get him on that. But it wasn't until like early 1992 that the state attorney in Illinois was able to say, yes, we have sufficient evidence to try him for the murder of Regina Walters. So what they did was they basically brought Rhoades into a room and said, "Look, this is the evidence that we have against you." And his attorneys wanted to negotiate a plea agreement because for whatever reason, we were talking about this when we were watching FBI Files last night too. For whatever reason, he really wanted to avoid the death penalty, which I don't know. I'm not him, but it's just kind of like it would seem like maybe. Although, I mean, the death penalty, if you don't appeal it, it'd probably be quicker because it's still pretty slow. But you'd think that, like, just if you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life in prison, like, that would be, like, worse than the death penalty. But I don't know. Like, maybe everybody's different. But he really did not want the death penalty. So he was trying to get a plea agreement. So he basically was like, okay, well, if I don't get the death penalty, I will plead guilty to the murder of Regina Walters. So in 1994, he did exactly that. He did plead guilty, so it did not go to trial. He just pled guilty. So he just got a sentence of life without parole, like, because death penalty had been taken off the table. And then again, as I mentioned later on, after they found out his connection to the other couple that was murdered, Patricia Walsh and Scott Douglas Zykowski, he finally admitted to that in 2012. And he also pleaded guilty to that and got charged with 2 counts of capital murder and got a second life sentence for that. I believe he was also charged with the murder of Ricky Lee Jones once they figured out that whole situation because, like I said, he wasn't found and identified until later on. So I think his technical conviction is 4, like it's 2 couples. But he has 2 life sentences. He's never getting out. There's no possibility for parole. So what they did was they took his trucking log, because you have to say like where you went and what you dropped off and everything like that. They've already run that through the VICAP, the National Center for Analysis of Violent Crime thing. And they, at the FBI headquarters, because they were like, this motherfucker must have killed other people. I mean, just by nature of like what he is, you know what I mean? So it's like there has to be other shit out there. So they put his log into like a database, and then they tried to like cross-reference it with other unsolved murders, other bodies found, things like that. And it turned out that a whole bunch of missing persons cases and unsolved murders, like bodies and things like that, found in places where he was demonstrably there at that time because of receipts and because of his logs and things like that. And a lot of the crimes do seem to fit his modus operandi in the sense of like his victim profile, like the way the victims were killed, things of that nature. So although they have not proved anything definitively, they are pretty sure that he's killed. Like I said, the high estimate is 50. That's how many cases matched with in this computer analysis that they did. They don't know if he did all of those, but those are all of the ones that came up as like similar enough that they thought he would be a suspect. You know what I'm saying? If he did
half of them, that would still be enough.
I mean, still, that's fucking horrifying. And honestly, it would not surprise me at all.
He told one of the victims that he'd been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah, he started being a truck driver in 1975. Yeah. And okay, so the thing, I don't know if they I think the VICAP thing, they might have just checked unsolved murders. I don't know if they checked like unsolved rapes.
Yeah, probably a lot of them.
Because I kind of feel like however many murders he did, I kind of feel like it was probably 3 or 4 times that in like rapes. And like the women got away or whatever.
Several of them got away. I read a quick little story about a woman. She had little pictures of herself. I don't remember what magazine it was. Might have been GQ, I think it might have been, or Esquire. And
GQ did a big long thing.
She got into his truck.
Yeah, there was a big article. Yeah. Just search Robert Ben Rhoades GQ, and it's a big like article.
She got into his truck. Good. She talked all about her. She hitchhiked all over the place. Talked about the way the truckers were. And she got into his truck. He ended up pulling a knife on her. Yeah. And telling her to run, and she ran out of the truck.
Yeah.
She let it. He let her go for some reason. He didn't do anything to her, other than that, which is weird. it made me think that he had worked up to these killings. And see, he had done this only like a year or so before the other killings that we know about he did. So I was thinking maybe he hadn't done that many of them. But when Jenny told me that they'd done a computer analysis of missing people and unsolved crimes that are kind of like what he does along his routes and with the times and everything.
Yeah, like where they knew that
there were
he
50
was.
possible hits. I started to recalculate that. Yeah, maybe he had done this shit for 15 years, like he told that other.
Yeah, because I believe he told both of the kidnap victims that they had that he had been doing it for 15 years. Yeah. And honestly, the FBI people that like looked at his rape kit, quote unquote, like his briefcase with all the stuff, they said this is somebody that's been doing this for a long time. Like, and they see that stuff all the time. They're like, it's very organized. It's very.
Whether or not he was killing them, that's something else, though.
Yeah, like I said,
you could do that to a lot lizard and let her go, and she wouldn't tell on you. I mean, she had been doing that.
Right.
Confirmed like what
that's
one
what
of
I mean.
them
How many
one.
fucking rapes are there?
Right.
Like, I'm sure there's a lot more murders, but it's like there's probably like way like exponentially more rapes that he did.
Yeah.
That weren't reported.
Rapes and tortures, and then just let him go.
Yeah, and they were just kind of like, well, because like I said, rape is super underreported anyway.
Yeah, he's doing it to the lot lizards.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're in that situation, like you're not going to report it most of the time for the same reason that girl didn't really want to report it. I mean, she did, but she was just kind of like, who would believe me? I'm not going to press charges. Fuck that.
Well, shit, I was going to say something about that. Go ahead. I'll remember it in a minute.
I mean, they thought, and like, again, this is just an estimate, but the FBI thinks that maybe he had ramped up his activity around the 90s, like the late 80s and early 90s, because that's when the cases that they know about happened, and that he may have been kidnapping and possibly raping, killing girls as many as like 3 a month in like 1990.
Yeah.
Because they said he was going all over the place. They said he was all around Arizona and all around like Texas and everything like that. Like, according to his logs, he was all over the fucking country. So it's like all of these cases could be him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was reading a thing too that said it could have been too that he might have started earlier than that, because before he was a truck driver, when he was still living in Iowa, there was some sexual assaults that happened in that city that were never solved that were kind of similar to the kind of shit that he did that, you know, again, were never solved. So it's like, he might have been like working up to it.
Serial killers are serial rapists. That's all they are. Eventually they start killing the victims. Some of them kill them right away in the first crime. But usually they start off as a rapist. And a lot of times, before they were rapists, they started off as peeping toms.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
That's the first one they start off. That's the most common.
And like I said, that's not to say everybody that's a peeping Tom eventually turns into a serial killer.
It's just a pattern.
But I'm just saying it's a pattern.
Yeah.
That a lot of serial killers, sexual sadists, and things like that start out with little shit like that.
As a peeping Tom.
Peeping Toms.
And then they break in.
Yeah.
And then they'll.
Because it's escalating.
Yeah. Then they'll commit a rape. Then maybe they'll go to jail for that. Then they get hardened up in prison. Then they come out and they do it again. But this time, they kill the witness, which is the woman. Then they get into that. And then now all of a sudden that's part of his pattern.
Yeah. So that's why I'm always a big advocate. Anybody that's doing any weird sexual crime, peeping Tom, stuff like, I'm not saying like give them a fucking life sentence or anything like that, but that's a person you need to watch.
Yeah.
Because that might be a first like red flag about something. You know what I mean? It might not lead to anything, but you never know.
I don't know what the numbers are now, but there used to be way more serial rapists than there were serial murderers. I think the ratio was like 10 or 20
That's
to 1.
probably still the case.
That there were a lot more of those than
like I said, rape is very underreported. Right. Still, it's more reported than it was, but it's still very underreported.
And usually it's kind of like something a serial killer would do. It's just that he lets her go. But you as a woman don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of safer to assume he's going to kill you.
I would assume that.
Yeah.
And maybe people think that's overreacting, but it's like, bitch, this is my life we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to get fucking murdered.
You going to take that chance?
I'm not
Yeah.
taking that chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just don't go
I don't,
anywhere
I don't
with
give a
them.
shit about his little fifis or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. You know what I mean? I don't.
The priority is not let them take you anywhere.
Exactly. Like I said, dude's doing some creepy shit.
Yeah.
I don't have any patience for that. I don't
If he's
have
gonna
any...
force himself on you, you make that motherfucker do it right there. Or shit yourself. Fucking whatever. Do whatever you can. Just, you're not going nowhere. Don't let him take you anywhere.
I mean, that's
Not
my
without a
best,
fight.
That's my best advice.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you can.
Yeah,
Like
if he
I
takes
said,
you somewhere,
pop his eyeballs out. Just do something.
if he tries to take you
Pull
somewhere,
his
that's a
nuts
bad
off.
sign.
Mm.
Yeah. Especially if you don't know him. Although some of the guys will, you do know him. Some of them will go
That's
on
what
a
I
date with
mean.
you
You
for a
always
while.
gotta fucking worry.
Yeah.
You always gotta worry. That's it. That's what I mean. And it's just kind of like, I don't know.
Or you think you know him, but you don't really know him.
Right. Well, see, that's a bit. That's the thing, and I think that's kind of like a. I'm not gonna say it's an unbridgeable gap, but it's like, dudes don't really. They don't experience what it's like to be a woman in the world, so it's like it sucks. Like just being, you never know.
Yeah.
Like who the fuck is gonna, and it doesn't even have to be a stranger. Like we're already scared of strangers. Like
Yeah.
everybody. Like I don't trust fucking nobody. But it's like a lot of times, and I see this a lot on true crime shows and stuff. It's like I met this dude and he was perfect and stuff, and they were married for 5 years or something like that, and then suddenly
Yeah.
he turns into this fucking psychopath. So you never know. And it's just kind of like, so you're always like on fucking guard, like all the time. It sucks, and it sucks
Yeah.
to always have to be like that, but you have to. It's
Yeah.
like just a self-preservation.
That's rare, but you know.
But it does happen.
It does happen,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So you always kind of have, so like, I don't want dudes to like take it personally when women are just kind of like, don't trust you or shit like that. It's like, we can't trust anybody. You just can't.
Well, until you get to know him.
Even then.
Well, so you don't trust me?
Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
well, you married me.
Most of
You
it.
bitch.
Most of it. But like I said, but you
Yeah,
never know.
mostly.
You could flip out. You could fall on your head and like something. You know what I mean? It's like there's a million things that could happen.
Well, you could just decide to poison me one day.
I would.
That's how women do it. Yeah, I would never do it. Well, I wouldn't fucking ever like to say, well, that's it. I got to kill my wife today. Yeah,
Unless you
that doesn't
really, really made me mad.
That doesn't. I'm like, well, I got to kill Jen today.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
No. But I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
like, some dudes are really, really good at putting on a facade.
The thing is, though, is no, they're not that good.
No, but some dudes are.
Yeah,
Or they're really good at targeting women that are not good at seeing it.
There you go. There you. Because the best one would have been fucking Ted Bundy. No, not Ted Bundy. What am I thinking of?
I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah, Ted Bundy. That's the guy. He that was the good looking guy, right?
Well,
the
if you
lawyer.
say so, yeah.
He thought he thinks he's the best
Right.
looking. Ted Bundy. And then once you got to know him, you'd realize that he was kind of shallow and false. Really, there wasn't much there. And the other one would have been BTK, Dennis. Dennis was a family man, but he was an asshole. You could tell there was. I think a normal person could realize that fucking Dennis was a fucking pretty shallow kind of.
Well, I don't like super uptight dudes
LARPing
like that.
type,
So
yeah.
I think that I would have been sususpicious of
I'm just-
him
yeah.
from the outset, and especially because he was like super Jesus-y and stuff, which is
Yeah.
always like a big red flag and
He
very
wouldn't.
suspicious to me.
Yeah. You wouldn't be attracted to a dude like that.
No, not at all.
And a lot of those
Well,
guys,
and like I
there's-
said, and it's not even. Well, the thing about it is that you don't even have to worry about like romantic relationships or dating. It's like it could be a coworker. It could
Yeah.
be so because you don't know if like some coworker that works in another office is totally obsessed with you and you don't even like fucking know who he is because that happens too.
most of serial killers can't hold a.
No, I'm just saying, but
job.
it does happen. It
Yeah.
does happen. So it's just kind of like it's not just romantic partners
Yeah.
that you have to worry about.
Yeah, just some dude that knows you.
Just some dude that knows
Yeah.
you, just like an acquaintance, like a friend of a
Yeah.
friend, or like I said, a coworker or something like that. Because I read about cases where that happens
You don't have to worry
too.
about that anymore. You work from home.
I know that's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, no, I'm thinking all my coworkers are
And
across the country.
And every time we leave this house, you got me with you as a fucking bodyguard.
Yeah, because I don't.
You don't have to carry guns. or
Honestly,
anything.
I'm not a super paranoid person. I don't
Yeah.
trust anybody for real. But it's like I'm not one of those people. It's like if I needed to go put gas in the car, I would just go and do it. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of like I don't know. I don't really like going anywhere by myself.
Yeah, to get back to the fucking Florida and the guns things, a lot of them fucking guns that are running around there, they're in women's purses. That's where a lot of them are. A lot of women carrying guns here.
Tammy said Chris Watts' wife posted on Facebook how wonderful he was just days before he killed her and their 2 daughters. That's what I'm saying.
Who's that?
Didn't we do a show about him? I watched a
don't know the name.
documentary about that motherfucker. Yeah, he killed his whole family.
What for?
I don't remember. I think was the case that was... I don't remember if that was the case that had to... it wasn't steroids, was it? Or Tren or whatever. I can't remember what it was. We might have done a show about it.
Is that wrestler?
I don't think... Was he a wrestler? No.
From WWF?
I think he was just like a regular ass person.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, we watched a documentary about him.
How much more on this guy?
No, we're almost done. So I just wanted to kind of get into this for a second.
Okay.
So yeah, so we don't know is what I'm saying. We don't know how many people this person, I use that term loosely, has raped and murdered. I'm sure it's a lot. You know. Now, I wanted to bring this up because I thought this was kind of interesting. Because remember what I was saying about all the photos that they found in his apartment when they raided it? So in 2015, they actually, authorities shared a photo of this young woman who they didn't know who it was. And Rhoades had taken this picture inside of the cab of his truck in 1985.
I know what you're talking about.
And they showed it on Facebook, and it was on the same roll as the ones that had Regina Walters on it. So they were kind of like freaking out because they're like, oh my God, is this woman dead too? Because they didn't know who she was. So they're like, so they put it on Facebook. It's like, can someone please identify her? Is she missing? Like, what's going on? And it so happened that a woman, she was actually a First Nations woman from Saskatchewan.
Yeah,
and her name was
Indian,
Pamela Milliken.
Yeah.
And she happened to see the post and she's like, hey, that's me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was in her 50s at that point, but she was like, hey, that's me. And so she contacted law enforcement and she said, yeah, I was hitchhiking to Winnipeg to go visit my brother. And Rhoades picked me up. And she's like, and as soon as I got in his truck, he took a picture of me. And she said, why'd you take a picture of me? And he said, I always take photos of whoever I pick up so that in case you rob me and run off, I can show it to the cops. That's what he said.
Likely story.
She's like, okay. So she says, he told me he was going to Florida and he wanted me to come with him. And he had a sign, as we mentioned earlier, on the dashboard that's like ass, gas, or grass. No one rides for free. And he pointed to it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, shit. She's like, well, I didn't have any pot and I didn't have any money.
Yeah,
So she's like, well, shit. I knew what had to happen.
Okay.
So she basically was like, she said she had consensual sex with him to get a ride.
Okay.
But he did drop her off.
Yeah.
She said he didn't do anything bad to her. He dropped her off at a bus depot in Winnipeg.
It wasn't his type. She wasn't his type, actually.
I guess not.
I saw her. I mean, she was an okay looking woman, but she just wasn't his type. Yeah. He wasn't going to risk himself over her.
Because he probably picked up chicks all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't think he raped and killed every one of them.
No. When you look at the victims that they know of, they're pretty hot. You had to be hotter. You had to turn him on. Then he'd want to keep you for a couple weeks, then kill you.
Yeah, then he want to like tie you up and like fucking pierce your labia with fish hooks and shit like that.
Yeah.
Gee, I wish I could be hot enough that some weirdo would want to pierce my labia with fish hooks. Said no one ever.
Well, you just go back and you go back and fucking try to remember what Ted Bundy said. All right. He was making fun of the Green River Killer's victims profile. He goes, boy, this guy's got no taste at all. He's just like a bottom feeder. He said, I'd never kill women this ugly, basically. You know, I mean, fucking Bundy was proud that all of his victims were gorgeous.
To which I would have just looked at Ted Bundy and be like, okay, so we're having a ranking system with serial killers now?
Yeah.
You fucked severed heads.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of my face with that.
Well, he considered himself
you
to be...
gross-ass motherfucker.
Bundy considered himself...
Fucking necrophile.
...to be a deadly Casanova motherfucker with great taste.
Y'all are all the same.
Yeah.
Okay? You're all fucking scumbags.
He said he could... he was like, he could never pick up the caliber of women I pick up. And there's something to be said for that because, you know...
There's a whole scene with
he
serial...
looked,
I gotta
you know,
hold on.
because Bundy looked normal. He looked like a normal kind of, I would say...
normal-ish.
Yeah, you know, he looked kind of like a normal guy. Some women of this time said that he was handsome. When he was on the news, people go, I can't believe that dude did it. They actually had women that worked in the court. One of them fucking started having sex with him, and I think she ended up marrying him. So he thought he was a real ladies' man. So Bundy, you know, he considered his ability to talk to women and to get them in a vulnerable spot, and then fucking do what he's gonna do, hit him with a crowbar, have sexually assault him, and then murder him. He considered that to be like some Casanova shit. I don't fucking get it, you know, at all. I mean, but he was very proud of that. All his girls were good looking. That he had good taste. It's fucking bizarre, but I guess it's like deer hunters fucking hanging up fucking all the biggest antler racks. You're like, oh, look, all the deer I shoot. I don't shoot little deer. Only big deer with fucking 8 point, 10 point, 12 point. So that's kind of what he's doing. He considered that he had earned those, you know.
Which, like I said, that to me is just very...
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's like being the biggest fly on the shit pile.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're also a disgusting serial killer and a necrophile.
Yeah, he fucked heads.
Who fucked severed heads.
Yeah.
So it's like, really, where do you get off feeling superior to anybody?
Yeah. In the days before the fleshlight, he would just take your head with him. I guess he thought that was some fucking cool shit, you know.
I never fail to bring
head.
that up whenever you talk about Ted Bundy because I know there's kind of the hottest serial killer. Yeah,
that bitch wasn't normal.
He kept severed fucking heads on his mantle.
Yeah.
He fucked severed head girls severed heads. Okay, he was a necrophile
until they weren't fresh enough.
He was a disgusting fucking pig. Like he wasn't cute. There was nothing cute about that.
Yeah,
he was disgusting.
Slaughtered like a 13-year-old girl in a pig slaughterhouse.
Yeah. He denied it.
Yeah, but he did that.
Oh, he did that shit.
Yeah.
He did that shit. He just didn't want anybody to know because it's like, that would make me look like a PDF file.
Yeah, she is. She was underage.
Well, you fucking did it.
Yeah.
You fucking did it. I love that they have fucking standards.
Yeah, they got standards, yeah.
Fucking ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yeah, so this motherfucker is now 78 years old.
Damn, he hasn't cacked yet?
Unfortunately, no.
Damn.
As we've seen in the photos, not looking too good. He looks like a completely different person.
Looks like Popeye.
Yeah, because the picture that I used for the teaser was a picture of him from like a swingers party back in the 70s or 80s, so when he was real young. And the one that I used for the thumbnail is like his a mugshot from much more recently. And he looks, you wouldn't even know that was the same person. Like I said, I don't know if he had a stroke or I don't know what the fuck is wrong with his face. I don't know if he's making that face on purpose.
I don't know.
I hope he had a stroke. I hope he had a stroke and I hope he has ass cancer. But also, so he's 78 now. And he didn't get the death penalty, but he does have 2 life sentences, no parole, so they're not letting him out. He's in the Menard Correctional Center in Illinois. Now, he has not confessed to any more murders, but they suspect that he has done a lot more. He's kind of one of those motherfuckers. He seems like he doesn't... He's not one of those serial killers that wants to brag about shit.
Yeah, seems like he wants the power of taking it all with him.
Yeah,
not telling you nothing.
Because there's kind of 2 different things. You have ones that will confess to everything and then make up some shit. Yeah. To make themselves seem more badass or whatever. In their minds.
I think it's most of them actually.
And then ones that will not tell you anything just because they get off on not telling you any information and keeping it to themselves. And I think he's more of the latter category.
Yeah, he doesn't want anybody to know where the bodies are. He doesn't want anybody to know what happened because he's basically punishing the families. But really, probably the families are all dead by now.
Sadly.
Families of the victims are probably all dead.
I just remember this, but I think when we were watching FBI Files last night? Yeah. The dude, one of the guys that worked on the case, one of the investigators, the prosecutor or something like that, he said that when the guy was getting taken off to prison, because he said, I think that he didn't really think that he was going to get in trouble for any of this, for whatever reason. It's they were taking him away, And he's like, and he turned to me and he said, "Get fucked."
Yeah.
And then the dude said, he's like, "I know this is not very professional, but he said, I hope that's what happens to you in prison or something, or where you're going."
Yeah.
And he's like, I felt kind of bad at the time, but he's like, "No, I don't. I'm kind of glad I said that." I'm kind of glad you said that too. That was pretty awesome.
The youngest known victim was Regina.
Yeah, she was 14.
14 at the time. That would put her, if she had lived, she would be in her mid-40s by now, probably 45.
Yeah.
So it means her parents are 70s. Well, probably.
Yeah.
So they may be still around. But that was his youngest victims. I think most of them were probably in their 20s and 30s.
Well, Ricky Lee Jones was 18. The other couple that he killed were 24 and 26.
Yeah. So
and then however many...
Yeah, most of them, I think.
And then the women that he raped that they know of, that were kidnapped and raped, one was 18 and one was 27.
Okay. All right. So that's approaching 30 if you're 27. They're all alive probably, but I'm just saying their families, like their mothers and fathers, are probably pushing 70s and 80s now. So a lot of people don't make it to that. You know, a lot of the men, especially that generation, they're gone by 75, 76 usually. The average, I think. So a lot of the victims' families, I think they're never going to get an answer. And fucking as old as fucking Rhoades is, he's going to go any year now.
I mean, look at his fucking picture, for Christ's sake. He does not look too good.
Yeah, it was kind of fucking strange. You'd think a bitch like that would try to go out with a bang and says, "Okay, get him on, get everybody in here. I'm going to tell the whole story." But it may be that he doesn't have that much of a story to tell. It may not be anywhere near as impressive or as we think it is. Maybe it's not 50. Maybe it's not even 25. Maybe it's only like 12.
I mean,
10.
That's still a lot.
Still a lot. But the other ones may be they're maybe not even reported missing. They might have been mostly those lot lizard type girls. Nobody's even looking for them. That's usually, see, this is the sad thing. Jen's written whole books on unsolved and missing people and shit like that. You would not believe how many bodies have been found and they don't know who that is.
It just makes me so sad.
I don't know who that is.
Because a lot of times it's just people that have run away from home.
Yeah.
You know, they're not really in contact with their families anymore. They fall into sex work. They are drug addicts or whatever. And then they turn up dead somewhere. And, like, the cops do try to solve it. You know, they're just, like, in a dumpster by the side of the road or something like that. And it's like, the cops do try to solve it, but they don't know who this person is. There's, like, no identification. There's no connection. There's no anything.
And another
that just makes me really, really
another
sad.
thing that happens is that they identify who it is. They go, "Oh, yeah, we know who this girl is." And they go look for the next of kin, and the next of kin are long dead. Or the next of kin, or if they are alive, they're notified. And they go, "Oh, her? Yeah, we hadn't heard from her forever. We thought she died a long time ago." That kind of shit. They weren't even looking for her.
Right.
You know? Because a lot of times, the girls that end up as lot lizards, their family's through with them.
Yeah, they just kind of fall through the cracks.
They want
like
nothing
I
to do with them, right?
Like a lot of them are runaways or drug addicts.
Drug addicts. They stole from the family. The family themselves low income. The family is fucking in and out of prison. You know, sometimes so. They try to find the dad and the mom and fucking, you know.
Yeah, a lot of times they come
They're
from
in prison.
horrible fucking home situations too. So it's just kind of like they're just escaping that. A lot of them are escaping abuse, sexual abuse, things like that. So it's just kind of like, it's really sad how many people just...
Oh, I remember what it was I was going to say. The FBI guy said that what made Rhoades successful was that he was intelligent. And he knew how to profile his victims. He went after victims that he could get away with it. But he didn't get away with Regina and the religious couple. They weren't quite his normal victim, I think.
Yeah, because they were just, I mean, they weren't quote unquote lot lizards. They were just hitchhiking.
Yeah.
He did say, like, his wife Deborah said that one time he had pointed to just like a sex worker or a lot lizard or something like that. Like, just said, and he's like, "Look, they're the forgotten people."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which, like I said, that kind of like bothered her at the time because, you know, it's like, that's still a person, you know what I mean? It's just, but the way that he talked about it, like, and a lot of serial killers have that mindset. That's why a lot of them prey on those kind of, and he particularly seemed to prey on women Because remember I said, like, the woman that he had in the van, like, when they caught him,
Yeah.
she had, I mean, she very cogently, like, laid out what had happened to her, but she was also saying, like, delusional shit. Like, I'm going to see the president, and I'm going to give him a microchip. Right, yeah, like, she had, like, paranoid delusions. She had, like, mental health issues, obviously. And so they were worried. They believed her. They were just worried that we can't put her on the stand because they're going to tear her apart, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think that he very purposely targeted women like that wouldn't be believed.
Right. And, you know, I think most of his victims were like that, and you'll never find them. Their bodies were found, but it's just not.
They don't know who they are.
They don't know who killed them, and you'll never make the connection. It was the later ones, like Regina and the religious couple. He was probably experienced in getting bold and kind of lazy by then, and he started punching up higher up on the fucking socioeconomic food chain, and that's what got him.
Well, and I will note that, like I said, Regina and Ricky Lee Jones, they were taken, they think, the same day that girl escaped from him.
Right.
So he might not have been in his entire right mind at that point, or he might have been, like, really mad or something like that. So he might have just
taking risks.
Yeah, so he might have just, like, picked up victims that he wouldn't normally.
Yeah. That girl got away, and then she didn't rat him out, and he's like, I'm invulnerable. Look at them, I'm going to get them.
Yeah, they said that, too, like, in the documentary. They said that, like, when she came up, because she looked at him.
She looked
right
at him.
They brought him up in the car,
him.
And she was like, no, that's not him.
Right.
Because he looked at her.
Yeah.
And she apparently freaked out and was like, no, it's not him. And, like, but then later at the hospital when he wasn't there, she was like, yeah, that was him.
Yeah.
But,
he felt
so he might have felt, oh, well, they're never going to catch me.
Yeah, he was like, I'm invulnerable. I can get against anybody.
Catch me.
So then he started grabbing ones that he probably shouldn't have grabbed because the family was looking for him.
Right. Because that's what I mean. It's like, so there's no telling how many just runaways and sex workers and stuff like that he picked up and just dumped somewhere that they don't.
So he could have 50 back there, like they said.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
I would think it'd probably be more like 20.
But still, that's a fuck ton.
Yeah.
That's a fuck ton. And like I said, there's a lot. There are so many, like I said, 99% of truckers, lovely people, I'm sure. But for some reason, serial killers disproportionately statistically represented among serial killers, just because serial killer people, like, are attracted to that profession for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And it would shock me if he hadn't killed a lot more people. And they'll probably find out later on. I don't know if they're... I don't know. I don't know if they're doing some DNA shit. It would surprise me if they weren't. Because honestly, a lot of the cases that I wrote about in Faceless Villain, that, in a lot of where the victims weren't identified, it actually shocked me when I went back and looked at a lot of them, how many of them, at least the victims, have been identified, even if they haven't found the killer yet. But so they are trying to identify people at least, because honestly, if they don't know who the victim is, then they have a hard time finding the killer too.
Yeah.
So there's that. All right. Oh, I wanted to mention too, just before we go. Incidentally, I just noticed this when I was doing some Google searches. There is another serial killer who is sometimes referred to as the truck stop killer. He is also called, I hate this, I don't know who came up with this name, the prostituter.
The prostitute, damn. He's shooting prostitutes.
Who came up with that name?
I don't know.
Did you come up with that name? Kill yourself. That is a terrible fucking name. I saw that on Wikipedia. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Who came up with that? Yeah. But he's sometimes known as the truck stop killer. That's not his main name, but this is another name that comes out. This motherfucker's name is Bruce Mendenhall, and he was actually apprehended in 2007. Now, he was convicted of 2 murders, but is suspected of 9 more. He was also a long-haul trucker, and the crimes that he was convicted for took place in Tennessee, but the ones that they think that he did were over several states: Alabama, Indiana, Georgia, Illinois, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. So that's another motherfucker that was a long-haul trucker that was doing kind of the same shit, like along the same lines. So they're, like I said, truck drivers, generally nice people, but there are some of them that are doing this kind of crap, including this motherfucker. But he's in prison, thankfully, and hopefully he will die in there sooner rather than later. Hopefully in a very, very painful way. But yeah. Oh, I also wanted to bring up, too, this is another thing. In this article that I read, that was about Robert Ben Rhoades, and it was just about sexual sadism in general. A dude from the FBI's Behavioral Sciences Unit. They've been doing like a long-term study of sexual sadists. Not necessarily serial killers, but sexual sadists, generally serial rapists, some of whom are serial killers. And some of the interesting things that he pointed out. Statistically, almost 100% of sexual sadists, white males. The one case they had that was a black male was a dude was adopted as a baby by a white couple. So, pretty much all white. Of the dudes that served in the military, overwhelmingly they were in the ground forces.
Yeah, Army, yeah.
Most of them had occupations that involved contact with the public. Excessive driving with no clear goal, or driving long distances was 40% of the dudes.
Prowling.
So like I said, yeah.
Trolling around.
Jobs that had to, like, traveling salesmen, long-haul truck drivers, stuff like that. 83% of them collected items related to sexual or violent themes. Most common collectible, pornography. Second was guns. Third was bondage paraphernalia. Fourth was detective magazines. Nearly 75% of these had murdered a person. Like I said, some were just rapists, but 75% of them murdered a person. Half of them were married at the time of their known offenses. Usually their wives were, quote-unquote, compliant. And they were also a victim of the tortures that would be escalated with strangers later on. So that was something because they're compiling like a study of these types of people so they can do profiling and stuff like that. And that is what they have found so far.
Huh. So it's a type of fetish guy who's real abusive.
Just saying.
Yeah.
That's what they have found.
Well, the military background, of course, you're going to have that. Because that's where you get all the guts to actually do things. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you know, where you're taking it out of the imaginary realm and into the real world, you know. You're going to take guns and you're going to fucking run people down and capture them. Bring them in. Police, they could do that too. Like, what's his name? The original Night Stalker. What was that? D'Angelo, yeah. D'Angelo was one of the fucking best ones. I actually worried about D'Angelo if D'Angelo was on your tail. Because he was military and police, I think. He did them both, didn't he?
Except he's a fat old dude now.
He's a fat old dude now and he's locked up.
And he's in prison.
Yeah, but that motherfucker would come into your windows while you were at home and fucking empty out all your guns and prepare the fucking place as a kill zone. And you'd come back with your wife and he'd fucking come back in through the window. He'd leave it open so you could get in while you were asleep and fucking creep in and fucking wake you up with a flashlight and a gun in his hand. Fucking do all kinds of bad shit to you so he could get to your wife. And then when he was done raping her, he'd eat all your shit while you were fucking eat all the shit out of your refrigerator and come out and kill you.
Probably take a shit in your toilet and not flush it.
Yep. Did he do that?
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking of a case in Japan.
He'd run through the house like it was his and fucking yell at you and shit. Treat you like shit. And then he let him live at first, but then he eventually got to where he was killing him. Yeah. It was a takeover robbery, basically.
Gilded Age Phoenix says, makes sense. Being married makes you crazy.
Yeah.
Does it?
No.
We just got married last September.
Okay.
We're not crazy yet, I don't think.
We've been together for so long.
Well, not any more than we were before. It didn't really change anything. Yeah. That's all. All right. Yeah, Gilded Age Phoenix also says driving a lot will turn you into a psycho for sure. Yeah, I understand that. I hate driving.
No, what it is that you cannot be that kind of serial killer unless you're mobile. So it's selecting for a certain type of behavioral pattern.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much that, like I said before, it's not so much that truckers become serial killers as that serial killers
drive a lot.
truckers.
Yeah.
Because they,
So they can
just
drive
kind
it.
of like PDF files.
Yeah.
Like to
Be around children.
be around children. So they will take
Yeah.
jobs where they can be around children a lot. It's not so much that jobs that are around children, they
Make
become
you a
PDF
PDF,
files.
yeah,
It's the other way around.
Yeah. And then they had like, I was trying to think of another thing that they fucking do. That doesn't matter.
What?
Oh, guys, serial killers, a lot of them that are not truck drivers still drive a lot.
Yeah.
They'll get in a car and they'll just drive around.
Well, BTK
They're looking for
did
somebody.
that.
Yeah, they're looking for
Well,
somebody.
his job entailed driving around, looking if people's grass was too long, or
Yeah.
if their fence wasn't right, or blah blah
Right.
blah. So he was on his own a lot too. So
Yeah.
he could like case out.
But I even think Ted Bundy drove around a lot.
He did, yeah.
Because they're trolling. They're looking for victims.
Yeah, they like to cruise around.
Yeah.
That's kind of, in a way, that's kind of like the build up
Yeah.
to the actual, like, BTK said that was something that he really enjoyed. Was just
Trolling
this
around,
whole
looking-
build up was just driving around, like the anticipation.
Looking for the next one.
Looking for the next one, and it's like, hey, maybe that one, and then like casing people's houses and
Yeah.
like developing the whole plan and everything like that. It was the whole anticipation of it that like
Yeah.
made it,
Yeah.
which is fucked up. That's fucked up. But yeah, this dude seemed more like an opportunist. Like he would just drive around and there's just people everywhere and you could just pick up people and he's just like, I like this one, I like that one. Like if he picked up one that he wasn't that into, he would just like let her go.
Yeah.
But if he picked up one that he thought was cute or whatever, then he would just like,
You want
hey,
to keep her.
yeah, I'm just going to keep her in
And
the
then the
fucking
only-
truck for 2
Yeah.
weeks.
And then the only way to keep her, of course, is to make her a captive. And if somebody was in the way, you killed him. Yeah.
Like I said, don't hitchhike. Nobody does anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
Unless
that's
you're
stupid.
really desperate.
Yeah.
Unless you're really desperate. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. It's almost 11 o'clock,
Yeah. We'll get something to eat.
and I'm kind of hungry.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. I think we mostly covered everything. Despite all of our digressions, as we usually do. So we will be back on Friday night for our sidetrack show. I think we're gonna go out to Mannequins Friday night, so we might do like a pregame show, like a little bit before we go. We haven't been to Mannequins in a long time, so we thought we might go. So yeah, so we'll see you guys again on Friday night for drinking and talking like we usually do. Thanks everybody for dropping by. Thanks for your super chats. We will see you again on Friday night. Good night.